of Florida to join the invasion armada. The Coast Guard puts 3 cutters and 20 smaller patrol boats into action to handle the harbor traffic. Here come the Marines in an amphibian tank, flying the Jolly Roger. You're seeing history made now. The Leathernecks leading a pirate invasion, hitting the beaches under the Skull and Bones.
Roll call, please.
Carlson. Herzog. Clendenin.
Here.
Henderson. Vieira.
Here.
Miranda.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here.
You have a physical quorum.
All right, we're going to kick it off with Tampa Fire Rescue.
Good afternoon, Council. Chief Tripp, Tampa Fire Rescue, and I did submit a couple of memos, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. I don't know which item you want to do first.
Councilman Vieira, do you want to kick it off?
So, if I may, Chief, I mean, I can go after you go, then the union goes, and then I can ask some questions if everybody wanted.
Okay.
If-
Do you have a slideshow presentation or
No,
anything?
sir,
or-
because the memo that I sent in pretty
Okay.
much talked about as far as having a master plan.
Okay, any questions or comments? If not,
I'll wait after the.
we'll take the union up and then we'll go back from there. All right, we have some folks. Yes, sir, come on up. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council. Don Snipes, VP, IAFF Local 754. Thanks for having us up here. A lot of times when I speak to you, it's usually right here, face-to-face, eye-to-eye. There's so many bullet points today that I had to put them down on paper. I wish it could be as brief as my PBA colleagues. Unfortunately, it's not. We like to quote famous people sometimes, right? So I pulled a quote today from Jelly Roll. Some of you might be country music fans, some of you might not. I took the rear view off of this old Ford so I can only see in front of me. The IAFF Local 754 has been ringing the bell on this oversight in fire public safety since 2018, 2019. We've had 3 union presidents. We've had 3 fire chiefs. Those fire chiefs have all worked together in that administration for that time. They were all colleagues. We look around all over the city, regardless if you look out of the right side of your vehicle, left side, windshield or rear view. Millions of square footage is being raised from the ground up, and we are still not dedicating public safety to the forefront from the fire side. I've been around the fire service my whole life. I'm 3rd-generation firefighter. 28 of my own years have been spent in public service. My father was incidentally a fire chief and led a fire department, was in charge of leading his men in that department as a chief, having to create master and strategic plans and going in front of city councils and doing the same thing that you all have asked of this fire administration. Just hits home. I'm a historian, driven by data and fact. The data shows we are behind. You know, leaders like to lead. In the good times, they love to lead. In the bad times, they have to lead. It's just the way we have to go if we're going to be leaders. Motion was made. Early of 2020, workshops were called for March of 2021. The IAFF Local 754 has presented council multiple times. At least a half a dozen times, council has requested a master strategic plan highlighting deficits and solutions from the fire department. I even recall council members offering their expertise in those areas of strategic planning and master plan development. The union has offered our assistance with the full support of the international office in DC to help move the city fire department in the direction it needs to go. Multiple costly data analysis were done by the fire department. The IAFF provided this service free through the DC office. We talk about the data. We hear data a lot. We like to look at the data. Sometimes we're told the data's old. Sometimes the data's delayed because a CAD system isn't up and running. Documented in many meetings, the fire department administration has told this council there'll be a CAD system up and running the end of the year 2021. I'm looking at the date today. It's May of 2024. Okay? We hear, dependent on your motivation, how you may interpret the data. We all do that. I can give you data there at the council table. There's 6 of you here today that could interpret it however you want. But when we drive the data, we have to drive the data from a standard point. PBA and Chief Burklaw were here this morning. Data points from all over the nation. Data points from right here in our own city. Unequivocally, all good data. The data that we are led to believe on the IAFF side is unit hour utilization. That never takes into effect that when that unit gets the 911 call at the station, gets on the road, gets to the patient, does patient care, then transports that patient to the hospital, or is on a working structure fire or an extended brush fire, those units are no longer available. But we only use the time from them going to the call to the time they go, okay, we're back in the truck and we're heading back to our house. Well, if I'm a truck on the north end and I get invited into the inner city, I'm gonna be a little bit of time before I get back up to the north end to protect those communities again. So unit hour utilization is not a very good gradient to use. The NFPA puts out a standardized way to calculate service for your delivery zone. And it's from when the unit is dispatched to when the unit is available to protect the community it belongs in. Those are data points. Call volume is still a problem. Travel times, still a problem. We've got construction everywhere throughout the city. We've got, I pulled numbers from Chief Burklaw's presentation this morning. Right now, over 400,000 people live in the city of Tampa. And by the end of 2028, which was in his strategic plan, there's going to be almost 460,000 people living in the city of Tampa. Those are more barriers for us to be able to get from point A to point B. The union has offered staffing solutions in order to help meet industry standards and provide life safety components to the citizens and visitors of this city. Turn on the news any given day. The city of Tampa is on the news as one of the highest rated cities to not only bring your business to, your industry, move in here and be work, live, and play ready. Industry uses the city of Tampa's backdrop for their meetings, conventions, and to roll out major plans that their companies are going to take advantage of it. It's a sought-after place. So we're not only dealing with the residents that live here, we're also dealing with the influx of visitors. Another one is one of the highest tourism destinations currently in the state. NFPA suggests 182 personnel. Currently, our fire department staffs 25 stations with 162. We have 162 on a daily basis to cover 25 stations. NFPA says 182. We're just looking to put the people on the street that when the 911 call comes in, not unlike the police department, we can respond with the resources that are necessary to mitigate those emergencies when they happen. Our staffing also has been swayed by the data. I like to go back to the data word because I've only been a union rep in this labor union since August of last year, voted in by the members of Local 754. And I've heard the word data ad nauseum. I just would like to have a good data point to start with. The data says the fire department has 792 budgeted positions. Currently, we have 764, what we would call butts in the seat. I believe 12 or 13 of them are currently at the training grounds finishing up their training. The funny way I came to that number is from the data I found. In fiscal year 23, the fire department budgeted for sworn and uniform salaries. And all the way at the far right of the page, it says 12.3% surplus. That's over $7 million back to the city, not used for butts in the seat. That would be if I had to simplify it for myself, saying we have 7 positions on council, but you know what? We could probably get away with 4 or 5. Let's fill the seats. The budget is there. The numbers are there. The data is from the city. Not the IAFF's data. That's the city's data. IAFF Local 754 has repeatedly attempted to help our fire administration with the full support of our international DC office. The admin has not reached out. Just in the past 6 months, we have scheduled labor management. Contractually, we're supposed to have one once a month. In the past 6 months, we've had 4. One was canceled by the administration in the month of April. And this most recent one, unfortunately, the fire chief was unavailable because of her schedule. We still had a labor management discussion, but a lot of times when the department head isn't present, there's a lot of unanswered questions still. In the previous fire administration strategic master plan, I do have something for the Elmo. Always wanted to say that. This was from the master plan presented. Says we're going to have 8 EMS golf carts, 5 ALS squad rescues, 2 heavy rescues, 17 new rescue car ambulances, 5 new engines, pumpers, 1 new tiller, ladder truck, canine trailer, 38-foot chemical, biological, and radiological nuclear safe boat, and 2 ambu buses. We just feel that the council, since you're putting this allotment of money aside for the fire department in the budget, where are we on these benchmarks that have already been put in front of you before in council? Again, recently, we asked about project Station 24. Station 24 from that same master plan. For North Tampa. We struggled to find some property in the beginning. There was delays with a few other hurdles that had to be overcome. And most recently, in multiple labor managements, we've heard hurdles that, since there's changing staff in multiple city departments, you know, some of these things can't get done. We'll get there. We're 20 years behind. I think I made that statement the last time I addressed council. We're 20 years behind with a problem that we've been ringing a bell on since 2018, 2019. We're still continuing to ring the bell. And we just need, these men and women of IAFF Local 754 need the support. They need your help in driving this department in a direction it needs to be. We saw the police department stand up here this morning. We agree that the police chief and the PBA have sat down. I think President Brandon Barkley spoke for 33 seconds. We agree, and we're going to allot that time for the chief to present your plan, the plan that the members of the PBA and the administration agree upon. I would love to be right here in that same spot. So to kind of wrap it up, I made a promise to the men and women of the IAFF Local 754 that when I became an elected official of this union, this labor union, that I would fight. I am not going away. I will not go away. I will continue to be data-driven. I will continue to be a historian. And I will continue to stand in front of you all. And I will continue to exercise giving the administration any assistance it needs from the IAFF. And I've said, that's not even on the local level. That's all the way from DC with products that are free, not charged by an outside analyst company. The Local 754 union leaders of these men and women, I believe at this time we have a target on our back, unfortunately. I will not jaywalk in this city. I will not accept a free cup of coffee from a vendor, because the level of responsibility that we are held at is far beyond any other position I have ever seen. I have never felt that way in 21 years, but I'm willing to put it on record. We were sworn to protect and serve this public. And as I stand here today, I'm going to continue to advocate for the life safety of the citizens, the visitors, the working conditions of this local, the safety conditions of this local, and the protected bargaining rights that are signed by the city, the administration, and the fire union. Those are all collective rights that we have. The last thing I'd like to add, we have 181 F12 or F12W labeled calls. Now in fire terms, that means we're responding to a structure fire. When it puts a W on it, that means we're actually going to a confirmed working fire, and we will be entering an ideal H environment. Our department, since January 1, has been dispatched to 181 of those type calls. In our collective bargaining agreement that started over a year ago, we were guaranteed bunker gear, a second set, for the men and women of this local to be able to protect themselves from cancers that our people are at a higher rate of getting. And like I said, I will stand here till I'm blue in the face, fighting for the safety and wellness of the men and women who have elected me to be here. Those pieces of gear were manufactured. They sit on a supply rack in a supply division, not issued to the personnel because it's more convenient, and this is documented in labor management, it is more convenient to roll that out as a big program. Incidentally, the manufacture date starts the clock on when that gear expires. So literally, we're taking life safety component, putting it on a shelf, waiting for the convenience to deliver it to the firefighters of this city to say, yeah, it'll be easier to manage if we just do it all at one time, while it sits there and the clock is ticking on its expiration. To me, that doesn't look like we're looking out for the health and wellness of those firefighters by not providing them with that gear, especially since we have 181 IDLH, immediately dangerous to life and health situations that they've been dispatched on. I appreciate your time. Like I said, I am normally pro everybody, but this has been going on. This is my third time addressing it, and I just feel it needs to be voiced. I have the respect and utmost understanding that the chief is doing the best that she can. We have worked together on things. We are glad to have Station 25 out there. We are glad to see this equipment's been ordered. We are happy that we're moving in the right direction. It's just we are not moving in an emergency services direction. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Councilman Vieira.
I don't know, did Chief
I don't know if
Tripp
you
want to
wanna-
say?
Before she comes up, no?
I think she should go first.
She already went.
She did?
Well, I didn't
missed
have anything to say, but I want to comment on a couple of
That's what I was
things here.
Yes, ma'am.
You
Go
know,
ahead.
so first of all, I'm not here to spread any negative because the fire department, the men and women of Tampa Fire Rescue work hard every day, okay? Since I've been in this position 3 years ago, I have, and my administration have fought so hard and bust our butt to make sure that the men and women of Tampa Fire Rescue are taken care of. You know, when it comes to looking at the big picture, when I got in this position, the fire department was on a downhill, okay? This administration has slowed that downhill and we're on an uphill. This administration should not take the fault of manufacturers' situations, delay when it comes to equipment. We have put everything to the forefront and pushing forward, okay? So when we talk about the deficit, yes, we are behind. That is not this administration's fault, but we take it and we're moving forward with it, okay? To have those outdated vehicles, to have an outdated CAD system that's 28 years old. When I got in this position, we had a CAD system that was already in play, and I ended that because it was not going to be sufficient and effective for the men and women of Tampa Fire Rescue. We are in the process of getting another CAD system, and as with everything else, it takes time. So that is going up. So when we're talking about the master plan, yes, we do need a master plan. But as you know, from the master plan that have been given in the past, it's certain things we need to stabilize before we can sit here, because what's going to happen is going to be the same deficit that we have already addressed that's going to come up in that master plan. So once we get these vehicles in place and put them where they need to be, now we can get a master plan and see what we need to move forward. Everything that was on that sheet, we've received 3 engines. We received a tiller that's in progress of being productive right now. We received 2 heavy rescues. We have received 10 of the 15 rescue cars, okay? We have received 2 of the ambulances that are ready to roll, and basically we've been using them as far as this plan. So a lot of that was done in 21 is actually coming to fruition in 24, okay? It's not this administration fault because the manufacturer said, okay, I can't get to. We have to go along with the technology as well as the communication, as well as, you know, what the vendors have out there. So we're talking about law enforcement, TPD, having certain plans. They have certain platforms, which is technology that Tampa Fire do not have. I have been working with all departments, including TNI, to try to get those database platforms in position. I'm gonna go back to our training. We never had what we call vector solution, which is definitely it's a training platform that we can identify some of our deficit to help us with the ISO rating, okay? We were one of the last cities, large cities, to be able to get that, and of course, that company lives in our backyard. This administration made sure we got that, okay? We're in the process of getting other equipment to make sure we be able to get that data to be able to lay a platform. So when it comes to building stations, when it comes to putting rescue cars out there, the call volume that I've had many men and women tell this administration, we appreciate everything you've done. We see a change and it's moving forward. So I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but if you have a question, I'd be more than happy to answer you.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief and Donnie, for y'all's remarks. It's, you know, with the Public Safety Master Plan, we funded that in the budget this year, so at the end, I was going to ask Chief Bennett on the status of that, because the Public Safety Master Plan is a report that is professionally done, and we funded it, and we want to see what so I'll ask that at the end if I may. So, you know, it's funny, the big thing that I sense from yourself, Madame, as well as from 754, is a real sense of urgency. I think there's an admission that's stipulated for the record that we've been running behind for years and years and years, and that we've also made some good progress over the last few years. But when you have a couple of decades or whatever it may be of not addressing certain issues, and I never like to look backwards, but when we're dealing with present issues, you got to look backwards, right? But before you talk about the deficits that we have now, I think it's important to talk about some of the things we've done together. You know, we worked together on Fire Station 25. There was a real sense of urgency on 13. We were able to put forth Fire Station 25 really fast. Funded in 2023 the Public Safety Master Plan to start having that go forward finally, which is great. New vehicles in East Tampa, South Tampa, North Tampa, et cetera, as well as a lot of different things. So we have seen some progress. But when you survey, and by the way, I think the things that I'm going to say, the union and the fire chief agree on. I think there's some frustration in terms of not moving forward with as much vigor maybe as some folks think that we should, but I think the crises everybody agrees on. Take a look at North Tampa, formerly that had Station 13, the busiest station in the city of Tampa. Now with the addition of 25 and forthcoming 24, you're seeing advancements in that regard where I don't know if this is true, I was told that now 1 is the busiest station. New Tampa, the big challenge with response times. You know, we've talked about in the past potentially a station for K-Bar Ranch. We put that on hold in favor of, and something I'll ask you about at the end if I may, alternatives, looking at a cut through Morris Bridge Road, an additional vehicle over at the station there on Morris Bridge Road and Cross Creek. Fleet maintenance, I'll ask about that, which is, you know, by moving that out of Station 9, as we've talked about, that'll free up Station 9 over at Chestnut to better respond to the needs in West Tampa. West Tampa, we're seeing tons of new housing out there, right? How is Station 9 going to be accommodated? I'll ask you that, ma'am, to build on that. Downtown Tampa, the big elephant in the room, in my opinion, is downtown Tampa. That's huge. You know, 20 years ago, downtown Tampa was a small fraction of what it is today. They had one fire station. Today, same fire station. And we've talked about that, and I know you agree with that, ma'am, 100%. You take a look at some of the things in the news. You have the Elliott being built in Channel Side, a 40,000 square foot social club. We just heard about plans for 300 units with ER, Tampa Tower. You continue to build, and every time I see that, I'm glad for Channel Side. It's a great Tampa success story, but where's the additional fire presence, right? And again, we all agree on that, I think. Where's the additional fire presence? I think the main issue that we're talking about here today is that continued sense of urgency, talking about the things we've done in the past and then working together to keep it moving with vigor. When I heard Donnie speak, I'll be honest, I was reminded of that. To me, it's a famous speech in my little world of Joe Greco a couple of years ago that I replayed a couple of months ago saying, we need urgency, and we're gonna work together, I think, to meet that. The big thing is revenue. How are we gonna pay for all these things, right? I propose the issue of bonding and looking at Station 24 and the fleet maintenance station, because again, if we're not gonna look at additional revenue, this is not a park that is a desired end that, boy, we want that. Wouldn't it be nice, right? This, we all agree, is 100% in need. We have to pay for these things one way or another. We have to do so. We talk about impact fees. Again, for me, impact fees, I'm all for it. We could have passed it 3 years ago. We never did, and now we bring it up again. And again, that's all great, but that's very narrowly tailored, an impact fee. Very, very narrowly tailored. We could look at, we talked about in the past, capping the downtown CRA. That's off the table. Number one, because we're all spent up until the year 2028. Number two, we don't have the votes for that, right? So that's off the table. We've talked about millage, looking at other sources of revenue. Again, my big thing why I bring this up is because we need to talk about some sort of a dedicated funding source. And as long as I'm in office, I will always bang on that drum, that we need to have a dedicated funding source for public safety. We have to. Nobody likes to bring that issue up, right? Nobody likes to talk about higher taxes. It's the kiss of death. Just ask Walter Mondale, okay? But there's certain things where you have to do it, because we can't use lemonade stands and say 12 Hail Marys to build new fire stations or to hire new cops, especially in the city of Tampa with our revenue challenges, et cetera. So I'll ask a series of questions, if I may, Mr. Chair, but at the end, I'll make a motion to have some of these issues come back to us, specifically on the issue of the fleet maintenance station. I'll ask you about that, Chief, if I may, in terms of the property acquisition, the status of 24, channel side, and then the public safety master plan itself, which is, we funded that last September, October. What's the status of that? But again, I want us to be all of our ships sailing in the same direction, so to speak, on this issue. And I think all of our intent is there, right? And I know there's a lot of different challenges. I'm not going to get into some of these issues, but I think we're all in agreement on the sense of urgency. We've done some great things in the past, but we have to beat on that drum together to get these things, especially, again, for channel side, fleet maintenance, Station 24, emptying up Station 9 so we can also meet the needs of West Tampa. So if I may, really fast, Chief Bennett, may I ask a few questions, Mr. Chair? Thank you. Before I ask Chief Tripp, Chief Bennett, if you're not prepared, I didn't discuss this with you before, but the public safety master plan itself, we funded that into budget. I can make a motion to have you all report on that in a couple of weeks if you need more time, but do you know the status of the actual report?
Well, I mean, outside, John Bennett, Chief of Staff, outside of it being funded in the budget, both of the chiefs would have to give us their state of readiness on that. 'Cause,
Okay,
I mean,
I
it's
didn't know.
their
Okay.
master plan. The way I've looked at master plans over the years is very much what you said, is whatever's our revenue stream, what's our gap analysis of the level of service. I think I understand from Chief Tripp is she's trying to get a sense of stabilization with a certain amount of assets that have already been ordered to have good data background to do the gap analysis. So that's a phase. I've seen agencies in foxholes before. I think the president may back me up when I say every time we talk, I say, how did we get here? And how are we trying to get out of here? And so I think it's a combination, and I agree with a lot what you said about everybody working together to swim upstream. So,
Yes.
But yeah, I do think both chiefs would have to report on that and their state of readiness in each department.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Chief Tripp, if I may, a couple of quick questions. Number one, are you prepared today to talk about the status of the actual funded report, or do you need me to do a motion to have that come back, ma'am?
Funding?
Yeah, so we funded in the 2023 budget funding for an actual public safety master plan.
Yes, no,
right?
sir, I'm not prepared for it.
Okay, I can do that, ma'am, that's fine. Really quick, with New Tampa, I know your written report, and I thank you for that, talks about some of the alternatives that we're looking at to cut down on safety, on response times, and especially in the K-Bar Ranch area. Could you talk to us briefly about that, ma'am?
So pretty much as discussed before, one of the big concerns is getting into K-Bar within a certain period of time. And one of the, I guess you can say the fastest or urgency way of trying to be able to deploy units in there is to have access off of Mooresbridge Road. I have been in conversation with mobility, and of course I sent the last map, and I guess it's some sort of codes that have to be approved in order to try to maintain access on that. And with that being said, my plan is to also put a transport unit in the area to help out, because currently Station 21 is the closest rescue transport unit to Cape Bar Ranch. So I wanted to put one a little bit closer to see if we can help out, as well as response time, because if 21 is out, then of course we don't have another transport unit in that area. So I think with time, because of course building a station, we're looking at 5-6 years, it's gonna take time, but I think the quickest way is to be able to get access to off of Morris Bridge Road, as well as putting a transport unit in the station.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. And then Station 24, where are we at? Obviously, we have the property there. Where are we at in terms of building, foreseeable timeline, et cetera?
So we actually just kind of put everything together with the RFP. We're getting that together to go through a design phase, and that is definitely in work. So I've been in contact with the contract admin to set up time. We are actually looking for personnel to be able to start with the evaluation and scoring for the design of that project. So it's fast moving.
Thank you, ma'am. And and I'm not gonna hold you to this, but do you think in the next, by what the heck are we in? Time goes by so fast. May of 2025, you think we should have something up, or is that?
Us have something up or breaking ground. I'm hoping
Let's just say breaking ground.
Yeah.
Let's say
So
breaking ground.
I sure hope that we can break ground the fiscal year. You know,
Okay.
that's my hope. But of course, I don't know all the fine details of, you know, as far as approval and stuff. But
Yes.
my goal is to, you know, if I could have built it yesterday, I would have.
Of course, no, I get that. Fleet maintenance, how are we doing with property acquisition for that?
Don't have any property. So still been working with real estate to try to find some property, you know, specifically for that facility, because once again, we want to combine two together, the fleet as well as supply, to make sure it's a little bit more effective and efficient for the men and women whenever they have to switch out vehicles. So I'm still looking for property. I don't have any property.
And thank you for that. And one of the messages we would have, and I think all council would say as administration, is we put forth the funding source for that. You know, everything's ready to fly. Let's, you know, and I'll make a motion on that. With regards to Channel Side and downtown Tampa, what are some of the possible remedies for the challenges that we see out there? Again, tons of building out there. You step out to Channel Side, it's a whole tiny little city out there. What do you think are some of the number one, the challenges and remedies?
I've been working with real estate too, to see if there's any type of property, you know, and as far as dealing with a lot of the builders and developers, of course, I have not reached out to them to see if they can do some sort of substation, you know, for public safety, whether it be law enforcement and fire together, and to actually see what the needs is. But I am definitely working on that. So my plan is to also add an additional resource to downtown Tampa to help out the current station, as well as support Tampa as well.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think once we put that in service, that's gonna stabilize. It's more or less putting a Band-Aid on it up until we can find some other concrete resources to be able to put a station in, or to put some resources in. And like I said, I haven't dealt with the developer, so that's something I probably need to get with construction services.
Thank you. And then last question, if I may, with West Tampa and Station 9, when we get fleet maintenance out of there, what are your plans, your wish list, if you had it there, for Station 9 and the increasing needs of West Tampa?
So the reason I, of course, need to get fleet out of there, because Station 9 was built back in '58, and of course it was built for pretty much one apparatus. We have three, so basically they're stuffed in there. So what I would like to do is tear the station down and build at least a 4 or 5 bay station, so the units can be able to run out appropriately, as well as predict for future if we had to add additional resources. So one of the things that I see back in the '50s, you never thought about, you know, combining rescue with fire, and of course that's what took place. So a lot of stations were built for just like a one apparatus. So it's 2 bays there now. Of course, the trucks are backed up, but I would like to tear the station down and build at least a 4 or 5 bay station.
Great. Thank you, Chief. And I'll make a motion at the end, if anybody wants any other motions. And thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council, for the accommodation. And thank you, Chief and Donnie, and also see Mr. Nick Stocco, who came in late, President of 754. Thank you very much.
Were you, Clendena was first and then Carlson.
Thank you, Chief, for being here today, and thank you for 754 as well for a good presentation. K-Bar, I appreciate your memo and the creative approaches that you're taking for this. I mean, you know, we're trying to resolve some response times and staging vehicles for, you know, to be able to do that. I think it's creative, and I appreciate your insight in addressing that situation. I agree with, I've got a few things to talk about. The impact fee, I agree with Councilman Vera. it's kind of like fool's gold. It's not going to solve our problem. You know, we have you know, I had to say that our fire services is one of the elements that we have that's in the city of Tampa that we've fallen woefully behind over the past few years as far as infrastructure and needs. And you've definitely walked into a situation where the needs have been great and the resources have been few, and you're trying to balance out that. And I also understand, and I'm sure you haven't expressed that because you've held yourself to a level of dignity, but we've been dealing with several of these things before I came on council. You've been dealing with these things. You've set these plans in place, and the seeds have been planted. You know, the soil's been tilled. You haven't reaped that crop, but things are moving in the direction. We're just not quite there yet. But there's still frustration, and of course, serving at the top, you get to be the recipient of all the frustration. Dedicated funding, I don't know. We are the funding, so I think if we had the will, we should be able to come up with the funding to do this. You know, it's I supported a millage increase because of where we are right here today, where our roads are, where our fire stations are, where our transportation is, where our police is. You know, we've got all these unmet needs, and it's. I think there's a certain level of denial amongst folks about how far a dollar can go in 2024 and 2025. You know, it's not as strong as it used to be. Land acquisition for you spoke about moving the facilities and land acquisition. Chief and anybody else in the city that's here that has input on this. I think as we look at moving this facility, fleet maintenance and all, we need to talk about that co-locating possibly with the facilities that we have at Lowry Park. And maybe as we look at that as a creative way of combining that, because, you know, we have fuel and everything else associated there with city vehicles. I think it'd be a wasted opportunity. Maybe we all should be looking together to get that done, and we could accomplish, you know, it's 2 bites of an apple. So hopefully we can combine that facility, and between working together as a city, we can get that done. One of my biggest frustrations, those of you that know my background, I came in air traffic control. I came in air traffic control at a time when all of the unionized employees had been terminated by the then president. And we came in, and it was a very tense and frustrating time, and nothing was getting done. We were vacuum tube technology. There was so many things that were behind at the time. And because we came from this, it was a conflicted workplace. And I think Louis Vieira talked about everybody sailing in the same boat, sailing in the same direction together. Anytime that you have that type of environment, it doesn't serve anybody well. It doesn't serve you well. It doesn't serve the people that work for you well. It doesn't serve the city of Tampa well. Somehow we have to figure out a way. I don't know if it's y'all going to a ropes course somewhere, but you guys all getting in that same boat with 754 and putting some of the past issues behind, and figuring out a way that all y'all can get together and work in that same direction. Because I think everything you've brought up today, I think 754 brought up today, and I think Councilman Vieira and others have brought up, could be solved by your leadership, 754's leadership, and the will of the rest of the city of Tampa. I think we're very capable of doing it, and I think we can do it much quicker if we're all working together and pedaling in that same direction. So I urge you as the top of the pyramid in this organization to try to dig deep into wherever you are and figure out a way of mending some of those fences and bringing everybody on board, and hopefully we'll all get, when we sit here next year, we can have another 30-second presentation by them, and we can really move forward and get a lot of this stuff accomplished. I'm very admirable again of everything that you've done. And I forgot to mention one thing: downtown Channelside. It's my understanding that Channelside, or the downtown station, is big enough and close enough to accommodate, and we have land there to accommodate, to be able to improve and expand services. Because I mean, the distance of you throw your circle around that Fire Station 1, you hit just about everything we're talking about as far as the growth and the expansion of Channelside, Water Street, downtown. Is it still within your plan? Because I know in previous conversations about doing something like that, because using that real estate that we currently possess and expanding that, is that still your ideal circumstances, or are you really looking to add another fire station?
So when you say real estate, meaning where Station 1 is currently?
Right. Yeah, building and expanding that to be able to accommodate and provide service to the growth areas in downtown.
So the conversation, yes, I did mention that before, because the conversation was more or less, if we take public safety with police and fire and combine it together, then we can release those offices there and be able to do some expansion, you know, with the garage and the whole 9 yards. So my plan is to take some of those vehicles or units that's in there that's not in service and be able to add some more resources there for currently, you know, as a stop the bleed type deal for now. But that was the plan if the conversation go with a public safety master plan or a public safety facility, then fire will move, headquarters, administration will move, and that would leave some additional space there.
Including additional bays?
Including additional bays, because
Okay.
this work can be done, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's where I thought we were at.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah,
I
but
just
like I
wanted-
say, we didn't move.
Right,
so.
okay, very good, thank you.
Councilmember Carlson, then Councilmember Henderson.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Tripp. A few different things. One, thank you to my colleague, Luis Vieira, for taking a lead on this and spending so much time studying the issue. The good thing is we all have different areas of expertise, and he has really deep expertise in this, and it's great to have that available to us, because this is one of the highest priorities in the community. People want to be safe, and luckily they don't have to think about this very often, but when you have to dial 911, they want to make sure somebody comes and they're available and they get there fast. And every second seems like a long time. Chief Tripp, you know, in your, Councilmember Clendenin was talking about your leadership being the top of the pyramid. I know from talking to some of your people in the community that you're lauded as a great leader. You have great people working for you, but you're not in the city. You're not quite the top of the pyramid, right? You're the head of this department. You don't report to City Council. We approve the budgets, but you report, I think, to the mayor. But just to make it clear to everyone else, do you report directly to the mayor? Do you report to the chief of staff, or do you report to both, or is there somebody else that you report to?
My direct report is to the mayor, Mayor Jane Castor. You know, I do conversate with the chief of staff with certain concerns within my division, my department.
And is there anybody else, like if you're trying to hit a timeline on something, it can one or both of them, I'm certain the mayor can veto, can the chief of staff veto a decision you're making or direction you're taking?
Yeah, I informed them everything that you know, as far as the plans with the fire service, you know, so I informed them, and like I say, they give me yay or nay or give me some pointers.
And is there anybody else who might have that kind of power? Is it just the two of them?
Yes, sir, that's all I know of.
And thank you. I think it's important to say that, because she's at least two people, she and the mayor, are making decisions, and the chief of staff is, as you just said, is involved in some of it. And so if the union's going to have a conversation, it probably should be with the three of you, not to disrespect your position at all, but if you agree 100%, you still have to go to the mayor, for example, and maybe the chief of staff, and somehow we have to resolve these issues that the folks talked about. But on something like the master plan, would that be, would it be 100% your decision? As Councilmember Vieira was asking, would it be 100% your decision after we approve the funding? Would you be the one that decided based on your workload or whatever that you just need to do it farther in the future? Or would there be a possibility that one of the other two might have said, this isn't important, put it further down the road? Would you?
No, to be honest with you, I think I should have that authority to move forward with it, but one of my concerns that I did express with the chief of staff and the mayor is about trying to get some of these resources out, and the master plan that we was going to create, but it wasn't like a professional type master plan. But if that's what you want, I have no problem moving forward with getting that master plan, because when you look at the master plan, what are we going to do moving forward? You know, how can we predict for the calls with the, you know, fundings, with these stations and where they should be located? You know, yes, that's the master plan. Based on the data analysis that we end up getting, a lot of that is part of that master plan. And so I was trying to stabilize, when I say stabilize the city, stabilize some of those deficit, and then move forward with the master plan. But they didn't tell me, no, don't do the master plan.
Did you, has a consultant been hired to help you
For
for the master plan?
No, sir.
You were supposed to do
'Cause
it yourself.
I will take full responsibility of that because I did not move forward with it.
But you need a consultant to help
Yes,
you, right?
yes,
Okay,
I am
just to
going
make sure.
to reach out and get a
Okay.
consultant to get this done.
Yeah, because one of the things I observed is that I had a bunch of people in the community who love you and respect you and came to me and said the person that they deal with is different than somehow, you know, what the public sees and what we see sometimes is you and the union not agreeing with each other. But when at the encouragement of the community months ago, I met with you and I talked to the union, and when I talked to you all on both sides, it seems to me like you're pretty much saying the same thing, but there's some other disconnect that I don't know about. And when you all come before us, it looks like there's more disagreement than maybe there really should be. And so I'm hopeful that there's a way to bridge this gap, and it sounds like my colleagues are in favor of trying to help with that. And so, please let us know. Two other quick things. The Channel District, I put it on the agenda, and your response back was, no, we can't do it. Then the Business Journal thought they were going to embarrass me by writing a story. I talked to all the parties involved in that. Yes, there's an existing lease on the port parking lot, but there are the votes. I believe that there are the votes on the Port Authority Board. The mayor may not be in favor of it, but I think there are the votes on the Port Authority Board to push this forward if we want to. And the tenant, the current tenant, told me verbally that they're okay taking away that lease. So I hope that we'll put that back on the table. There's no land in Channel District. And I hope that whoever was against it will come back and talk to us. The port, knowing that the city wants to protect their other maritime land, I think would be willing to work with us on that, and it would help save. The last thing, I'm out of time, but I would like to hear from the union at some point what else you think we could do to bridge the gap between you, but I'll yield my time. Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chief Tripp. How are you?
Good to yourself.
Okay, I know the top-down approach to leadership can be challenging sometimes. Just listening to the union representative as well as what you've had to say, I get the impression, or it's just my conclusion, that you are put in the most difficult situation because you're in the middle of who you report to, which is the mayor, versus what you're trying to accomplish as the fire chief and the people that you are serving, the men and women, that under your leadership. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like maybe you can't say what you really want to say because it's a conflict of interest with the person that you report to. I'm just going to put that out there. And if that is the case, I hope that there is some medium where you feel comfortable enough to present that information in a way that seems a little bit more transparent, because it doesn't seem to be to me. I will say that I'm also interested in knowing about the actual personnel. Are you understaffed? When I look at the employment, under our open competitive listings of employment opportunities, there's only a listing for external for a part-time fire inspector. Everything else is internal, from hiring from within. So can you address that in terms of it being a surplus in the budget for staffing?
So we're less than 5% when it comes to our vacancy rate. And like I say, I'm not trying to put certain things out there.
What is the number for 5%, Chief Tripp? I'm sorry. Is it 20 people? I'm sorry.
I want to say it's probably about 30 people.
30?
Probably 30 people.
Okay.
So currently, we actually staff about 235 people per shift, with Kelly days, R days, and then, of course, unscheduled leave. That brings the numbers down. So when you talk about only 162 people on, and then we have certain people call out, it's like certain days of the week, we have 20, 30, 40 people calling out that's unscheduled leave, So with that said, we have the people, but it's where are they? Whether they come to work, not come to work, or they're on Kelly Day, R Day and stuff, and so we sub for that. But as far as having what we call, say, a minimum staffing is 160, I think it's 165 now. But we actually have 233 people, 35 people that's scheduled per shift.
Tell me about the hiring, in terms of,
what
are the plans for that?
So the hiring, we just actually opened the job description up in the first of the year. So we just brought on 14 personnel. They came out, I want to say April 7th, first week of April. They will be out on the streets, there's 14 of them. June 1st, we're gonna open it up again. So since I've been in this position, we've hired 3 to 4 groups per year. With the SAFER grant, which is the assistant firefighter grant where we get additional personnel, we've been hiring. So we go out to the schools, we go out to the different schools, the community colleges, all of that, and try to promote. We have made some adjustments with our hiring and looking to have a little bit more applicants. So I want to say we're less than 30 people, to be honest with you.
Understood. Now, is your union aware of that? They understand that there is a training class that just ended and that there's a new training class that's getting ready to take place? Because when they present it, they act like you're not doing your job, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
So are they
Well,
aware of these particular numbers that you just presented with new hires and the plan to hire a new training class coming up?
So once again,
Or
me
is that a
being the
secret?
leader, trying to be very respectful of a lot of things, because I don't believe, you air your dirty laundry out. I have more than one time tried to communicate, and it's some things you just kind of have to shut off. I put the information out there if they ask for it, but being targeted is kind of hard to continue, with certain things. So my thing is that I just keep going and try to move forward with the department, with the community, and just hire the personnel and put butts in the seats and put the safety out there for the men and women. So vehicles, all of that. So I just,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
do you ever at a time refuse to meet with the leadership of your union?
never,
Okay.
never.
So the meeting that he spoke about where you had to cancel was a conflict because of a
Right.
particular meeting?
It was a particular meeting because of a conference. So of course I didn't, a
yeah.
conference that I had to attend, matter of fact, this week.
Okay,
But personnel was there. We went over the list as far as the agenda of the items that was going to be talked about, and a lot of that information was displayed to them,
okay. Again, because when they stood up just before you, they presented it as though you don't want to meet with them.
No.
That's how it sounded
No, I've
to
never.
me up here. That's how it sounded. So I'm just putting it out. Again, something else that I don't like. Trust and believe, you do have an outlier up here on this dais. I am not afraid to address what I see, and I don't like it. I don't. I do believe that there's some undermining, and hopefully you all will find a way to work it out so that you can serve the citizens of Tampa and to protect our safety, because that is the #1 priority. But don't present the BS to us as though Chief Tripp is not doing her job and that we are not listening to you all. So I think I'll just leave it at that, because that's enough entertainment for one day. Thank you.
Lewis, anything? Councilman Vieira? Councilman Miranda, yes, sir?
Because you were getting to it.
A problem, we want to fix it, but we haven't come to a conclusion how to fix it. Both yourself and the prior speaker from the union from 754 have said basically the same thing in different words, and you want to solve something, but there's something missing somewhere that either I don't hear well, or maybe I don't think well. I don't know what it is. But there's, and I don't want to, the public voted for that community investment tax years ago. And here's a problem that we should have solved years ago and never did. We never put nothing aside for this, for the police, for some vehicle replacement. Yes, we've got that. But when you look at those things, it's so convoluted because it's coming back. We look at housing. We're never going to fix housing with the money we have. Never.
Agreed.
Yet, in that contract, there was a year for 30 years, no rent increase, not one penny. So I'm telling you now what's coming. So the public is very aware, much more attuned to what's happening now in society due to the increase in different avenues where you can get your news, from podcasts to broadcast to word of mouth, through cell phones, you name it, they have it. And that's fine, that's wonderful. So I think they're going to be much better prepared in any avenue to do anything they want. But there is a CIT tax coming up, and there is the a tax on tourist tax. We got a 6-cent tax that we could use if possible. And these are the things we have to work with the administration to make sure it gets done. So you have to do this part, we have to do our part, and 2 parts equal what? The sums of the digits, or 100% of something to fix a problem. I'm not trying to just give you words. I don't do that. But I think that all this could be worked out if we use all the revenues that we have and parts of the revenues that we have to make sure that the citizens of the great city of Tampa, you know, we rank 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in every category in America. Well, we used to rank 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 from the bottom. Now it's from the top. So there has been great strides made in this city. There's been great strides made in this county. But there's things that are just bothersome to the general public, and it's when we do something that they don't quite understand. And, you know, it is what it is, but I think we have an understanding here that we can resolve this problem. I think it's critical to solve it, but I don't think it's impossible to not solve it. That's the only words I could use, because I think that everybody's on board. I've heard the administration name 3 or 4 different times. You've had some success, and I know when you order a fire engine or one of the apparatus that you need, no matter what it is, it takes sometimes 2 years to get it. And that's America at its best now. We've gotten so rich and so wonderful that at the end of the day, when you order something, you can't get it, because everybody's ahead of you ordering it already. So that's the problem we have. And that's called capitalism, because sometimes you order that in some other country and you never get it, never. So that's the advantage we have in being a democracy. So I think these things are workable, and in fact, I mentioned, and I think it was passed by this council, about the increase in, help me here, Mr. Vieira, because you're the genius in this area, and new housing and new development to charge more for the ability for them to get water and sewer.
Impact fee.
Impact fees. I was looking for impact fees, but the time I had an impact fee, somebody hit me with one, and I went down for 10 rounds. But what I'm trying to tell you is that that's a small thing compared to what you need, but it takes something to get it started. And I think that is what you're looking for, and what the 754 is looking for. I think it's doable, and I think that I heard some things rambling here that I think some of the council members, if not most of them, think it's doable. So I think we're on the right track. I think we need a better understanding of what all the facts are, and working with the administration, all of us, not just you and the 754, but what comments the council may have to the administration. I think it's doable for both of you.
Thank you very much.
And I just want to comment on what you mentioned as far as the vehicles, and you're correct. It takes about 24 months to 36 months to get a vehicle. So I just received vehicles that I ordered in the fiscal year budget 21 and 22. So, and right now, the vehicles that we was paying $600,000 for, it's now $9 to $1 million.
Yeah.
So each vendor has had anywhere from a 30% to a 50% increase on apparatus.
Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, Councilman Vieira, do you want to make your motion?
Sure, if I may, sir. And I'll say really fast, if I may, with regards to the union, you know, I strongly believe in unions. I salute that the Starbucks workers on Linebaugh and Dale Mabry formed a union. I think that's awesome. They joined a union. And a union's job, whether you're a nurse union, a first responder, public sector, whatever it may be, is to push teachers, educators, to push for the welfare of your workers. Because a lot of times there's conflict between labor and management. And I point as a perfect example of that, Station 25. You know, we got additional vehicle out there at 13, and I was like, okay, good, we're good. And then the union came to me, Joe Greco, and said, Louis, we're not good. Things are pretty bad. So, you know, with their advocacy, we took it to you. We got it done fast. I mean, that was light speed. And that was a real perfect example of a union challenging the status quo and saying, things ain't good. We got to make it better. And then us working together on it, the advocacy, and then folks working together. But again, I want to really, really defend the role of the union. I know, and I know there's I'm not going to get into issues and the news and all this other stuff that has nothing to do with personnel issues, et cetera. I want to be very respectful of that. Those are legal issues. But when it comes to their role in advocating for the welfare of their workers, I've always been a pro-union guy. That's just me. I'll always have, and I really believe in that. But in that big instance, we work together, and that's important. And I want to say that we have done a lot of great things together, but when it comes to the ability to pay for the things we want to do in the future, I think we're on the wrong path right now. I do. We have great ideas, but we don't got a way to fund those great ideas. So that's me. So, but if I may really fast, a couple of quick motions. For the Public Safety Master Plan, this will be just a memo. June 6th, to come back on the status of it, a consultant, et cetera, just a written report, that's fine. Do you need more time for that?
Yes.
I bet you do. Okay,
You want
how
June
about
20th?
July?
July 18th, June 20th?
There you go, that's.
July 18th?
Straighten your
Do we have a date for that? Check on the calendar, we're okay for
July 18th?
July 18th.
July 18th, is that good?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Mr. Vieira, may I ask a question?
Yes.
With regard to the master plan, I'm looking at specifically item 75, which I think is what this is referring to.
Yeah.
That says Tampa Police Department and Tampa Fire Rescue to present an annual report. Now you're changing your motion, it's only replying to the fire? And
No, so if the
Please.
annual report still sticks, this will be coming back to us next year at this time.
Okay.
But do I need to make a motion for that? Is that built in?
I don't, it says next, yes, it does say next report scheduled for March 27th, 2025.
Okay, good. So
That's
then-
good.
Yeah, so that is for police and fire.
Okay.
To report on the status of the public safety master plan with a consultant, because it was funded by the budget, so we want to make sure that that goes through. So that's my first motion, if I may.
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Anything
Then,
you have?
oh,
July
go ahead.
18th, right. Okay.
July 18th under staff report.
Thank you.
Just a written memo. Yes.
I wanted to do a little bit of a discussion,
Oh, okay.
just a comment.
Pull back that vote. We have a motion and a second, and then discussion. Go ahead.
Thank you. One of the things that stood out to me that you said, Chief Tripp, is that some of the deficiencies would still come up in the master plan. That's why you hadn't started it. So that's what we could also anticipate. If it's expected in July, you're gonna be revealing some of the same things that you've already told us, and I just wanted to point that out.
Yes.
I think the expectation is not to have the report come
Yeah,
back in
but to
July,
start.
just to start it, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I know, but I still just wanted to put that out there, that that's, a possibility of that happening.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, no, without a doubt. I mean, we were just in a terrible car crash. We were a Honda Civic hit by a tractor trailer, and we're taking an MRI. There's gonna be 4 herniated discs there. So I'm not, yeah, I mean, that's.
Spoken like a trial attorney.
I know.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Then, and thank you for that. I do also we'll set this in the future on October 3rd of 2024 for Tampa Fire Rescue to report on the status of, and the real estate, on the property of, status of, long day, property acquisition for fleet maintenance, the status of 24, and then the status of needed improvements in Channelside and downtown. We'll do that to give you all enough time so that we can check up on updates on what we're talking about here today.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Clendenin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
And then lastly, if I may, and I said I was gonna do this for police and fire, a written report, no need for in person, unless if y'all want to or the unions want to, on August 1st. That's when the budget we should have the budget by then. But to have specificity from police and fire, based upon the reports from today, from Chief Tripp and Chief Burkhaw, what is in the proposed budget that was discussed at today's meeting?
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira. We have
Second.
Second from Councilmember Clendenin. Any
Can you
discussion?
repeat that for me? I'm sitting right next to you, but I just.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm asking today, Chief Tripp and Chief Burkhaw spoke about prospective improvements and additional programs, funding, et cetera, for TFR and for TPD, so that we pass the budget at the end of September. I'd like a briefing written in August of what is going to be in the budget that they spoke of today.
Okay, sneak peek, I understand.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's it. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Clendenin.
Yeah, I don't know if you had an opportunity to meet our new budget analyst, but I would highly encourage, especially as you prepare a budget, to be submitted to the administration, to maybe work together so that she could brief and help us understand what your wants, needs, and desires are, so that we could be supportive of those in the budget process and hopefully get you guys what you need. Thank you.
Everybody good with that? All right. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to open the 9:30 a.m.
So
public
moved.
hearings? Motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Good
Aye.
night.
Well, you know. All right.
Mr. President?
This is a quasi judicial proceeding. If you're going to speak on item number 70, please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in. We don't have anybody virtual, so anybody here speaking on 70? Thank you very much.
I don't need to be sworn in. Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the legal department. Hi, I'm here on item number 70, which is the second reading and consideration for the John F. Germany Public Library to be considered for a local historic landmark. Staff is present, staff is available if there are any additional questions.
Any questions or comments? Any applicant, anybody in the public wish to speak on item number 70?
Motion closed.
We have motion closed from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor? Aye. Councilmember Henderson, would you mind reading this?
It would be my pleasure, Chair. I move file number HL 24-3846, an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, designating John F. Germany Public Library and Auditorium located at 900 North Ashley Drive, Tampa, Florida, as more particularly described in Section 3 hereof, as a local historic landmark, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Councilmember Henderson with a second from Councilmember Miranda. Please record your vote.
Motion carried unanimously with Hurtick being absent.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. At this time, we have administration update with Chief Bennett. Yes, sir.
If we
Mr.
can,
Shelby.
Mr. Chairman, I would like council to recall item number 72, perhaps a motion to reconsider. There's something that was on the addendum that I overlooked.
It was misnoticed.
It
Yeah,
was not
we-
misnoticed, it was actually, not only was it misnoticed, it was withdrawn. And on the addendum, if you look at it, it says email from Stephen Michelini, applicant representative, requesting that said agenda item be withdrawn. So I'd like it recalled for the purposes of accepting it as withdrawn by the applicant.
All right.
A motion to withdraw item 72.
We have a motion to withdraw item 72 with a second from Councilmember Vieira. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Thank you,
opposed?
council.
Thank you. Yes, sir, I'm
Mr.
sorry, Chief Bennett, Dr. Chief.
Dr. Chief.
That's what it is.
Good afternoon, John Bennett, Chief of Staff. We had asked for administration update for two quick things. The first one is to have our EM coordinator, John, to go over some of the hurricane things that we may expect this year, since this is the last meeting before the season. So John's got a short presentation, and then I have something quickly after that. John?
Good afternoon, council, administration, public.
You have to state your name.
Johnny Tapsis, emergency coordinator with the city of Tampa. I know it's everybody's favorite time of the year. Hurricane season's around the corner, starting June 1st. I was asked by Chief Bennett and Chief Tripp to give a presentation on the outlook. I had a couple bullet points of what we've been doing as the city of Tampa to get prepared for the season, and then I'll go over for the public as well, things that they can take to get prepared as well when it's still beautiful days out before we get into the storm season. First, just up on the tropical outlook, the Colorado State University, they do their annual tropical seasonal outlook. And again, they're looking at a above season activity for the hurricane season. And that's because, one, the Atlantic is warmer than normal. We're already looking at June temperatures, as well as we'll be transitioning from an El Nino tropical climate to a La Nina. And what that means basically for us is there'll be less wind shear potentially in the height of hurricane season, which ultimately could be more activity. Overall, they're looking at 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 5 major Category 3 or above storms. But ultimately, to leave you guys with this, it only takes one. If you remember back 1992, Hurricane Andrew, that was an A storm. That was a terrible year for South Florida. So one storm that hits us in the Tampa Bay area is going to be a bad season. If it's not, and we have a lot of activity, but they go back out, we don't have to worry about it. Again, 100+ years since Tampa Bay was hit by a major hurricane, 1921. Hopefully we'll continue to keep that lucky streak going, but we got to be prepared going into the season. So from the city perspective, we update our comprehensive emergency operations plan every year. That does the roles and responsibilities for our departments when we're in emergency mode, as well as update maps and things of that nature. We're having our final draft actually tomorrow that then goes back out to our departments. We go through a lengthy 2-month process with our departments to update roles and responsibilities, lessons learned from Hurricane Idalia, to update our plans for this year. We also have our City Know Your Role program with the 4,800 employees with the City of Tampa. We all have emergency roles that we may be called upon, whether that is working at shelters, giving out sandbags, giving out commodities post-storm, damage assessment, clearing debris off roadways. We make all those assignments ahead of time, have trainings that we've been going over since April, and we're continuing on through this month. But again, to make sure all our employees know their roles, their assignments, have the proper training, and then when a storm does threaten our area, we're ready to go into action. As well as next Tuesday, we do our annual tabletop hurricane exercise with leadership. And then on the 29th, we will do our full-scale emergency response center push drill with our public works teams, where we actually go throughout the city and push through our routes, verify our routes and our critical facilities throughout the city, again, to ensure that everything is ready to go in case a storm does happen this season. June 1st will be our second annual Hurricane Expo at Barksdale, and I'll put the flyer up shortly. But again, that's for our residents to get out early. We did have, since last year, 3 sandbag machines that we implemented, which greatly put the throughput from Hurricane Ian to Idalia. Great success getting those 3 sandbag machines out. We did not have long lines last year. So again, at the Hurricane Expo, we're going to allow residents to come in early if they want to get those sandbags ahead of time to help mitigate that demand when the storm's coming. Also, just from the city's end, on off-season, we're continuing to update our technology, supplies that we need at the city. Our drone program, we continue to enhance that program. And if you remember, about 2 years ago, we implemented drones in our damage assessment teams. So again, post-storm, as we did with Hurricane Idalia, we can get to Davis Island and other areas where there were flooding to get those drones up and see that live footage to see what kind of damage happened from the storm. Next, also, the Community Emergency Response Team has been a wildly successful volunteer program with the city. We have implemented that since 2021, and the CERP program, at this time, we've had 10 classes so far since 2021. We've actually trained 180 residents through that program, and 70 of those residents have gone through level 2 background checks, so it allows us to utilize them to give out sandbags and other operations during emergencies as well, but that's been wildly successful. We actually even held recently a program over the weekend with University of Tampa. But again, life safety training, CPR, stop the bleed, and other emergency preparedness trainings that those residents go through. Also on our website at tampa.gov/hurricane, we just recently updated the 2024 Disaster Preparedness Guide. We asked all residents to look at that guide. There is updated information on shelter locations and evacuation zones, so all the latest information is on our website at this time. As well as our Hurricane Hang Tag program, just for the residents as well. That's our program post-storm. If you live in certain zip codes south of I-4 and 275, to allow easy reentry when Tampa Police Department does their reentry plan, and again, provides that visibility for our officers out there that the right people are back in post-storm. So again, on our website, tampa.gov/hang tag, residents can get those hang tags and again, have that with them in their hurricane kit. 2 final notes, 2 state programs that are out there for the residents as well. July 1st will be the My Safe Florida Home program. That's $10,000 from the state of Florida to help mitigate your home and harden your home. Again, on these blue sky days, this is really the time to look at when retrofitting your home, whether that's with impact glass, hardening your roofs. Take the time now, but the state is providing some funds to do that. And then June 1st to June 14th will be the disaster tax holiday, where certain items, and they're all on our website at tampa.gov/hurricane. You can get all that information on what supplies like generators and things of that nature that will be tax-free. For our residents, again, how to prepare. Our 3 main messages always every year is have your hurricane kit now. Don't be in those lines like we've seen in past years where all those supplies at the Publix's, Walmart's, things of that nature start running out. Get your water supplies in place, 7-day of supply, 1 gallon per day. You also want your non-perishable foods, flashlights, batteries, weather radios, cell phone chargers, but take advantage of that tax holiday to help build up your kit now at the start of the hurricane season. Having your plan also in place is really key to bring down that stress during these times. If you are going to be going to a shelter, identify your closest shelter. You all should know your evacuation zone. If you have either in your family or someone in your friend network that may need a special needs shelter, get registered now for that through the Department of Health so they can accommodate for any supplies you may need at the special needs shelter. And another big takeaway, if you take pictures now of your contents in your house, if there are any insurance claims, it's going to help you get through that process much easier. And then finally, just staying informed for the year, we hope to have folks sign up for Alert Tampa. They can go to tampa.gov/alerttampa, or you can follow us on social media at Alert Tampa. We put a lot of great preparedness information out there for the public to stay informed throughout the year. And we will continue to update folks as things develop this season. But appreciate everybody's time this afternoon. I just wanted to put up the flyer for the Hurricane Expo. Again, this will be over at Barksdale on June 1st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We have Mission Barbecue committed as well. They'll be out there, but again, sandbags, and we'll have speakers getting everyone prepared for the hurricane season. But this is really to kick off everyone getting prepared this year.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Miranda?
I just want to say, I hope nothing hits, because the water in the Atlantic is hotter now than it is in August.
Yep.
So if one comes, you better leave.
Hey. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate all your hard work and always keeping us informed, because we get your emails, we get your the situation reports. Now, I know they're abbreviated, but yeah, you work 24/7. I mean, and when disaster strikes, and we've had, I mean, I've been here long enough now. You know, we had Irma, we had other close calls, and you work nonstop in your team. So we appreciate you very, very much. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Anything else, Chief?
Just one quick thing again, John Bennett, Chief of Staff. I wanted to bring up Mike Swain, our Employment Services Manager. Just wanted to tell council that to expect a memo from or through my office for our new Chief Information Officer, who is replacing Russell Halpert. So we'll be looking to bring that candidate to council on June 6th. So it gives you a 3-week window. We'll get the memo out by the end of this week with the background on the selection process. Mike was able to get 94 applicants for that position. And we worked it down to one recommendation from the mayor, probably by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. We'll send you the memo with the background on the department, the background on the selection process. And if you want to talk to the candidate between now and June 6th, just let my office know and we'll set it up. But I just want to point out that Mike Swain does an amazing job with our recruiting and hiring process in the city. And, you know, thousands of applications all the time, and, you know, for the best and the brightest. So I just wanted to give him some props through this process, because it's been a long one. And it took 2 national searches to get 94 candidates for one of the most important department heads we have, obviously.
Thank you very much. And I'll echo that about Mr. Swain. Always professional, always top notch. I see Kelly Austin in the back, great department, great folks, and you know, again, they work very, very, very hard. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, we have an example right here sitting at our table today. It's the first time attending officially as city council, and it's in no small part for y'all's help and assistance guiding us through the process. I really respect your expertise and your professionalism, and the input that you provided was invaluable. So thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Henderson.
Yes, thank you. How y'all doing today? Okay, yes, thank you for what you do. I want to ask a question about national searches in general. Is that a SOP practice when it comes to higher level positions within the city? And how much does it cost when we do that?
Mike Swain, Employment Services Manager. It varies with the position as far as how we approach the recruitment. We tend to look at history as far as what we did the last time and what efforts were used and the number of candidates that were garnered from whatever that effort was. If we use a national search, such as with the CTO, we went out to DICE and we went out to governmentjobs.com. DICE cost us probably about $500. The governmentjobs.com was about $250. So that's kind of what you're looking at.
$250?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, this is affordable. Okay, you know, for some reason in my head, a national search was extremely expensive.
Well, if you're talking about bringing in a recruiter, that's a different, scenario there. But obviously, we're going to try to do it as cost efficient as we can. We always post on free job boards as well. There's a couple within the government space that we tend to use that don't cost any money.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, national searches, depending. I've heard for other departments it can be a lot of money. So, Councilmember Miranda. No? All right. Thank you.
Do you take your directive from the mayor and chief of staff on national searches, or is that decided from an HR perspective?
Well, typically there's a discussion that will happen between the chief of staff and the HR director.
So what is it?
I'm sorry?
Do you do it?
I'm the action guy.
You're the action guy.
So the
okay.
decision
That's
is
a
made
directive,
above
I
me,
see.
but I'm the action guy.
Okay, I'm just putting that out there for the public, that the top makes the decisions and they bring them down. People don't seem to understand that, but I appreciate you confirming that today.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is that it, Chief Bennett? Next is item number 74. Mr. Bede is here. This is an $8 million discrepancy down to $12,000. I don't want to speak for everybody else because I know Councilmember Carlson had mentioned this, but
It's not a discrepancy. We're ending the contract.
no, I want to know why for clarity, because it looks like we budgeted $8 million, but now we're not spending it, so
Sure.
just for clarity's sake. Yes, sir.
Sure. Afternoon, Chair, afternoon, Council. Vic Bede, Director Mobility, here to address item 74. And that is correct. We are terminating this contract with a closeout invoice of about $12,000. And the decrease of $8 million simply reflects the amount on the contract or the value of the contract. As far as any concerns relative to budget discrepancies or where did the $8 million go, this is a citywide contract available to multiple city departments for use, primarily used by mobility, and it's one of two citywide contracts. So this is with Ajax, the other we have with C.W. Roberts, which is already active. These contracts, because they're citywide contracts, do not pertain to a specific project or a specific budget line item. They're available to use for capital or operations needs by mobility and other departments as needed. So it's not like there's now $8 million available because this contract is being terminated. It's just that this contract is being terminated, and we do anticipate going for another contract because we always would like to have redundant paving contracts.
Fair enough. Councilmember Carlson.
Vic, could you tell us what the, there's a bunch of numbers flying around. What is the road repair budget, not including pipes or whatever? What's the road repair budget this year?
This year, it's with that $7 million, it's about $12 million.
And before that, it was?
It was about $5 million of the $9 million.
And how many years was it at around $4 or $5 million? Do you know?
It varies. So that $5 million does not include grants. That $5 million does not include any potential matches and all of that. But it's been at that level for a while now because gas tax receipts have been stagnant at that level for a while.
So do you think like at least 10 years or?
Yeah, easily.
And then just so we're all getting the same information in public. And then so out of the 11, 12 million, is this 8 million coming out of it or was it on top of that?
It's neither. So there isn't an $8 million line item that this contract was associated with.
But what you said is there's like a fund that can be used by any department. And my fear, based on what you said, is that some other department will grab this. And we know from constituents that this is probably the number one issue that they've been wrestling with for years. And
Sure.
so I would, if we're going to vote to take this out, I would like to vote to put it back in immediately so nobody else can grab it, because if it's going to be 12 plus 8, that means it would be 20, and still we need, do I remember correctly, like $2 billion to fix all the city roads? Was that number in the ballpark? Or?
So, yeah, that number is in the ballpark. There are a couple of things here. One is this isn't an $8 million fund. It's an $8 million contract. So basically, by terminating this contract, we just have one lesser contract. But we don't have $8 million available that will be taken up by some other department.
But where was the money coming from?
So ultimately, the contract is available for any department that has funds relative to this contract.
But that's what I mean. That means
we were going to use this contract using our CIP budget, which is 12 million, or operations budget for paving, but other departments could have as well. And we have another contract just like this. So none of our paving projects are delayed or suffering. It's just that this particular contract was not active, so we're letting it terminate, and we will procure another contract. But I'd like to separate the notion of funds available for the contract because the contract is there. It's just a mechanism.
I wonder if we could ask our budget advisor, or if it's too premature to do that, maybe we could defer this for a couple weeks. My fear is that in seeing how different things have been approved over time, sometimes we make a decision that has other impacts. By the way you're describing it, it sounds to me like there's a bucket of money that this could come from, but it just stays in that bucket that's not designated. So it's not a line item, but if we can keep this money for road repair, the priority of the public is road repair right now. They desperately, you and I have been out there in the field.
So if I could clarify, the budget for road repair is going nowhere. The only thing we're doing is terminating a contract that is not active.
But could I, yeah, but see, Mike, go ahead, never mind.
Councilmember
Let me see if I can, I'm gonna drop it down so we can all understand. You got $20, that's your contract. Of the $20, you spent $12. There was $8 that were supposed to be there's different departments that equal the sums of the $20.
Correct.
But of those sums, some have not done the project, so I don't know where that sum is, but there's $8 left. You spent 12 out of the 20. You got $8 left. Or not, the money is not there because it hasn't been spent because maybe you didn't have the money to spend.
So if I could give you a counter example, just to bring it to life. We have a signals maintenance contract, a traffic signals maintenance contract. If you add up all of the line items on it, it comes out to about $30 million. Clearly, we don't have $30 million to spend on signals, but signals have poles, electrical equipment, conduit, so all of those line items need to be there so that we can perform the work if needed. So this contract is for paving, similar to that. It was a certain amount, but it didn't mean that there were budgeted monies for that contract. Right. It was available citywide, that's all it is. And because this contract wasn't active, we're terminating it, and we do intend to go for another paving contract. There isn't a direct correlation between the contract amount and our budget amounts.
Okay. You got it?
Got it.
Councilmember Clendon.
No, I mean, I think that's clear. I understand that. So the contract just sits there as a contract that could be utilized. It wasn't funded. There's no line item. It's just sitting there so that we can, if somebody had an extra dollar, they could go and exercise the rights under that contract.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, good. And you've heard me say it a million times, though, when we find money, we're gonna spend it, hopefully we can spend it on the streetcar and roads.
Absolutely. And that's why we're gonna go for another contract. We want to make sure we have the contracting capacity, because we do hope something happens with the AFT dollars. I know there was a question about that. There isn't clarity on it yet, but we're hopeful. And we have been hopeful. That's pretty much all we have with that. And then potential for the CIT as well. So we need contracts and we need our in-house teams as well.
Just so there's no confusion, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Wait, let him finish.
Let me finish this then. So, Mr. Beatty, while I have you capped, well, do you want to, because mine's sort of a pivot, I'm pivoting. So while we have them captive.
You really didn't have the whole 20.
Correct.
You budgeted in for the 20, but you didn't have the 20.
Correct.
That's what the clarity comes in.
Yes.
You spent 12 out of the 20.
Yes.
So even though you had 8 left over, you never had the 8 left over because
Correct.
you never had it to spend.
Exactly. It's just that the contract is available
I understand.
should we have another project. Yep.
Wait, Councilmember Clendon and Councilmember Carlson.
Whilst we have you captive in front of us at the dais, on camera. So earlier in our 6-month briefing on budgets, I'm sure you watched it, we talked about parking, which I know is near and dear to your heart, and there's excess revenue there. As I did last time, we made the motion to steal that money from you. I know it broke your heart. What is standing in the way in your priorities of that excess revenue that we may have in 24 from shifting that funding to paving for this year to be, so we can double down on your efficiency of bringing this pavement, and double down on or doubling down of bringing the efficiencies to the paving of streets in Tampa?
Sure. So long as that money stays within mobility and goes towards mobility priorities, I think from every angle, financial, legal, and also mobility, it's valid, and we have needs across the board. I do want to highlight again and take this opportunity to talk about the sign package, and it contributes to traffic management. It does not solve traffic, but what it does is it guides vehicles to spaces in garages where they're available, rather than everyone going to where they want to go and then they start looking for parking. That creates about 30% of the traffic during special events. And that's what this system will help us do. And it's not a software, it's not signs, it's not an app, and it's not controls. It's all of the above working together.
I understand that want. I'm having a hard time, and maybe we need to sit down off grid and have a discussion about what that truly means, because when I look at the entire city of Tampa and the great needs we have for infrastructure improvements and paving, I mean, it sounds like that's something we really need to talk about. The folks that are having special events here, helping pay for something like that as we grow and develop, help pay for something like that, because our needs in South Tampa and West Tampa and East, all across the city on road improvements is just so significant. I mean, those are real needs. I mean, and not necessarily the wants of. And I agree. I've gone visited cities that have that signage program, and they're nice. And you go to Disney, they have it. It's nice. But I mean, we have. I'm sure there's streets in war-torn countries that look better than ours. So we've got to do something about that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's our number one complaint, no doubt, but there's also no doubt about the return on investment on a system like that. But they're separate.
It's just such a small area considering the entire city of Tampa. As far as the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people and the biggest impact for the taxpayers that are here, that are actually living in the city of Tampa, I'd like to, it weighs heavy on my soul. Thank you.
Councilmember Carlson, anything else?
Yeah, I would just, I would recommend that we get our budget analyst to look at this and come back in a couple weeks.
Is there any harm if this is delayed? Since it's just, I mean, it's.
There isn't any harm if this is delayed. We can come back in a couple of weeks. And again, our intention is to let this contract expire and then put another contract out there, because I would want redundant contracts on paving, given the clear desire to have more paving done.
I know June 6th is full, but we've had plenty of discussion on it. I think this would be a simple discussion, so.
Maybe we can just ask for a memo.
We can do that.
To speak.
Yes, ma'am.
So, thank you. Mr. BD, you got, yes, I thought I cut it off. Regardless, we still owe them $12,000, correct?
Yes, we still have to pay that invoice.
I just have I have no issue with what Mr. Bide is requesting regarding just allowing this contract to end and paying them their balance and not having to come back. Staff is asking for something that's reasonable, and I think we should just be able to do it. I don't think another week and having our brand new budget analyst look at it, come up with a different resolution.
Sir?
Yeah, I just feel burned on so many levels, and I don't want to go back through all the cases, but where, and I'm not talking about Mr. Vita necessarily, but where people have said, oh, don't worry, if you guys approve this, you can still turn it down another time, and it doesn't affect this, and it doesn't affect that, and then it turns out that it did. And I just want to make sure that anyway, if you guys want to vote on it, I'll just vote against it. If you want to delay it, I think $8 million is a big enough number that we should, and it's double what the road repair budget was until last year. Though, Mr. Beatty, one other thing real fast. I would just ask, you and I have spent many times talking about this, but on downtown, I would appreciate if I don't believe that it's true that the cause of the congestion downtown is that signage package or Cumberland Garage. Cumberland Garage is far away from where the problem is. You and I have talked about it. The problem is the way this situation is set up downtown, the police give preference to pedestrians. And I understand we're trying to turn to a pedestrian and cycle-friendly city, but in the meantime, we've got to transition with all the cars. And I've walked that area multiple times. You and I have talked about it on the phone. I just think it confuses the public, causes a lot of problems. We say, oh, well, the problem is city council didn't approve the signage program. And the reality is that we need to change the way that we're giving higher preference to pedestrians and not giving any preference to cars, because the cars are backing up. I can't get here on an average day now. The cars are getting backed up all the way to Howard almost every day. We've got to provide some relief for cars to get into downtown.
Here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean,
It's not that
traffic
people don't know where
downtown,
it's not that people don't know where the parking is. It's that they want to go to Palmyra Garage, and they don't want to go to the other garages.
So if I could just push back a little bit on that. We're not saying that this, the parking guidance system will solve traffic, but it certainly helps to point people to where there's parking available than having folks go to the most preferred parking location, absent the information where parking is available. And it's really that simple. It doesn't solve all of the traffic challenges. It's about network, it's about mode shift, it's about completing the downtown grid, which is currently 1/3 finished with Water Street Phase 1.
The same thing, Steve Griggs was leading Orlando, if I remember correctly. He was leading Orlando when they created that great parking garage where you can get out easily. And you know, they can, in their system, send out a map of where all the places are, and they can have an app where people can buy parking in advance. And by the time you get there, you're not driving anywhere. You're stuck in traffic. It seems to me that all that needs to be resolved before people even get in their cars. And we can do that just by relying on the Lightning and the Marriott and the Edition and everyone else. But you know, the SPP has a problem. People can't even get to their facilities. And Harbor Island, people can't get to Harbor Island. I mean, you and I have talked about if we just took the police out and let the signal themselves so that people can get around. But the thing I don't like is the finger pointing. We need to, and I don't know exactly who's doing it, but we just need to say, look, there's a lot of issues we need to address, and we're trying to address them. It's going to take some time, but we're trying to fix them. Thank you.
Councilmember Miranda.
I'm sorry I missed part of it because I was outside doing some personal stuff, but when you look at things like, I come down Ashley, make a left on Jackson. Problem is, it takes from 3 lanes to 1 lane, but that problem is aggravated by when you have the flow coming from Tampa Street, making a left on Jackson. However, it was better today because finally they had one was go and stop with a little sign, and the other day when I took it, I said, I must have designed this because it doesn't work. And the reason is you're 1 lane backed up, but when the light stops, you got to stop, but there's no cars making left, so there's no cars on the traffic. Why don't they put the go sign and stop? There's nobody coming. But I said if they had a police officer there that could see that, run it through, because maybe they're the only ones that could do that. You can't have somebody just with a stop and go sign say go and stop.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and just to wrap this up, I have no problem with this issue. We've talked a lot about it. However, I am empathetic with the fellow council person that is uncomfortable with it, and staff has said that it's inconsequential to delay it until we build that level of comfort. So I move that we delay consideration of this until
June 6th?
June 6th.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin. We have a second from Councilmember Carlson. This is to continue this item to June 6th under staff report. Yes?
If I may, and again, I want to make sure just from my own, I have no
Straighten
problem
out that
voting.
microphone.
Long day for me. So Mr. Bede, again, this poses no problem to any projects or anything, correct?
That's correct. We're not
Okay, yeah,
using the
then of course
contract.
I'm fine, yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, sir.
For the record, I want to say nay, so you have it.
Oh. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any
Nay.
opposed?
Nay.
You're mean.
I'm not mean. I can decide for myself what I want to vote.
I'm being funny.
Thank you, Council.
Stop being sensitive. Stop being sensitive. I'm being
I'm
funny.
not sensitive. You are.
Thank you very much.
Leave me alone, Ellen.
All right, we did 75, 76, 78, 9, 80. Next up is 81. This is regarding community stepping stones, or stepping stones in Sulphur Springs, as it's written here.
OCON.
Hello, how are you?
Good afternoon, Council Osea Wynn, Administrative Neighborhood and Community Affairs.
Extraordinary.
Thank you. I am in possession of the memo, email that Community Stepping Stones sent. I think I ended up with it, regarding a request for funding for $75,000 for their after-school care program, arts program, outreach program. And the request from the last council was for us to provide funding to support the nonprofit. I am working with our chief financial officer to see what funding is available during this year, this fiscal year. Once we have a better idea if the funding is available or not, I can reach out to Community Stepping Stones. If it's not available, they will have the opportunity to submit for funding for FY25 for that nonprofit fund. I just want to make it clear for council, as with all of our nonprofits, that we are requesting everyone to complete an agreement. And that agreement will include the request to develop a statement of work. And we and me, will work along with them, as well as with performance measures and metrics. We're holding all of our nonprofits accountable, that if they're not meeting the metrics quarterly, then we will revisit the amount of funding that they get for the next quarter. So I just wanted to put that out there and see what questions you may have regarding stepping stones.
Councilmember Vieira, this was your motion. You first.
Yeah,
Councilmember
no,
Henderson.
yeah, so no, I appreciate that. I was gonna put a request for some funds for them in the next budget already. So, that's great. So if we can provide funds now, that's wonderful. You know, this is in, Sulphur Springs. I visited Community Stepping Stones for the first time probably 6 years ago. And I'm glad that council and I'm sure the mayor are gonna support giving them some funding, because they, it's a great resource for families in Sulphur Springs. So thank you for that. So whether it's this year now, which would be a great blessing, or for next year's budget or post-October budget, we'll get it done, I'm sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. Ms. Swin, how are you today?
I'm quite well, thank you.
Yeah, I had a chance to visit with Stepping Stone within the past 14 days. And, you know, they're doing some really great work over there. This is really more so a statement for the public as well. They are very nervous. They've been supported by Hillsborough County Commissioners in the past in the amount of $75,000. They have great fear that they will lose that. They feed these kids full meals that come to them, their safety. They gave me some amazing stories. I hope that we can find some funding this year to, you know, get them over the hump, the hurdle, even if it's not in the amount of $75,000, if we can just do something to support them. The social action funds or non-departmental funds, this is of great interest to me, particularly because I am the district representative for District 5. So many different smaller organizations that are not on our list that serve, particularly for me, our youth population is very important to me. And so I just hope that you can express that to the mayor and staff when you all are making these decisions, because it appears to me as though if you get on the list, you stay on the list forever. And now we are developing community benefit agreements, you know, with the organizations that currently exist, but having to land on that list in even smaller numbers, I think we can serve a lot more people or organizations if we are not as generous to everybody else. That is of great concern to me, and that's why publicly I made that motion a few weeks ago that everyone that's on that list currently be notified that when the end of the fiscal year comes, that you're not guaranteed to get what you've gotten in the past. And that's really important, because we could spread the wealth to other organizations, even in smaller increments. So I do support giving Stepping Stone some fun. They serve children in our community, and it's important that we not overlook that particular point over in the Sulphur Springs area. So thank you.
Councilmember Clendenin Carlson.
I concur with the statements that have been made about stepping stones. One of the, as you heard probably, if you were listening this morning or talking with the chief of police about their actions involving youth, our problem, so many problems can be solved by early intervention and helping. And this is one of those programs that gives kids a place to go instead of up to mischief. They're up to, good and learning. I think it's a great return on the investment. Anytime that we invest $1 in youth, we're going to receive $10 back in societal returns. It's something I think is extraordinarily important. It's in a very important area of the city that we need to focus on investments as well. So this is a great program. So I'm actually going to jump ahead, because then they can come back and do something else with it. But I'm going to make a motion for fiscal year 24 to allocate $75,000 to Stepping Stone. And then subsequently, I'll be looking for 25 to increase that to be equivalent to the others. I agree about, and so I'll put a period there. That's my motion. And then for discussion, I agree with the assessment of Councilwoman Henderson and your objective in getting this in line in a business-like fashion, ensuring that this organization does the appropriate paperwork application and the accountability, just like we should expect out of every organization. So I would expect that as we approve this, that they have to fulfill the exact same things that we should expect out of every organization. So pending that process, that we allocate the $75,000 for fiscal year 24.
We have a motion, but Councilmember Carlson, do you want to speak?
Second, did somebody else second it?
No, you can second it, and, but you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this is a great program. It combines several different things. It's in Sulphur Springs. Instead of creating a CRA, we can just move money up there. It helps kids who are in economically disadvantaged. It has environmental aspects to it, so kids learn about the environment. And we support the environment. It has the arts, so they learn about that, and food and other things. So it's a great all-around program. There are a lot of other programs in Sulphur Springs. I think several of us are looking around for that, like Layla's House and others. And we need to be strategic about how we invest, and we need to hold everybody accountable. This is a great program. I especially, though, believe in what Councilmember Henderson said, that we need to notify nonprofits that this is not a recurring thing. We might renew it another year or two, but we need to be able to set up a situation where nonprofits don't expect to get funding from us. This should be fill a gap or make a strategic investment, but the city doesn't have the resources to fund nonprofits on an ongoing basis. We also, I think, are probably all helping them with contacts, although they've got a very powerful board. We're trying to help them fundraise also. But the idea should be that they should be self-sustainable if the county doesn't pick them up again. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Shelby? Mr. Shelby, you haven't spoken yet. Okay, Councilman
It
Vieira.
may be taken care of by, it's related to this motion, so when you're done,
Okay,
I'd like to be able to just discuss it.
Councilman Vieira.
I did also, what folks have said with Councilwoman Henderson on recurring funding. I got last year, for example, in the budget, I think it was $75,000 for the Penguin Project of New Tampa Players. It's the arts for the developmentally disabled. I didn't mean that to be something that's permanent every year, and I think they know that. But it is true, which is, now there are some that we want it to be. For example, a perfect example is the Ybor City Museum. Every year that should be funded, and I think we increased it last year. I think it was to $150,000. It had gotten cut from $150,000 to I think $75,000 every year. So there are some that should be every year. And then there's some years where we go, hey, look, you're doing great work. This should help you for a really long time. And that's, for example, how I meant that. This is one, though, that I would like to see something in there every year. I think this is something that is, if not at the present level, lowered levels, whatever, some continued support. I think that's important.
Mr. Shelby.
I still have my light on, Chair.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I know, I just want to speak on the motion, per se, so, and maybe Mr. Herrero, if he's listening, and Osea, Ms. Nguyen, you can tell me this. Is that how it works? Stepping Stone was not a part of the budget last fiscal year, and so Mr. Clendenin just made a motion saying, I move that we give them $75,000. And it can't be as simple as that, because everything that was in the budget last year for the organizations that I asked for money for would be the same type of motion. I don't think that's how it works unless there is. Mr. Attorney Shell.
That's exactly where I was going to go.
Yeah, because I just want to go back in circle. Even $75,000 is a lot of money. Just to be even more transparent for the public per se, I asked for $5,000 for my organizations because I understand, and I've said this even to the mayor, you know, you can do a little with a lot. I know that as an educator, $5,000 is support. We are just here to say we believe in you. We like what you're doing. add this to the other funding sources that you have. We are not here to feed every single organization in that way. And so some of these people, even the Ybor, you know, what did you say, museum? Yeah, the Ybor Museum. It's like, I would want to know, who else are you getting money from? You know, are you expecting the city to fund you year after year after year when there are other organizations in the city of Tampa that get absolutely not one dime from us? You know, so we can't just say, oh, well, I like this one and you should fund it, unless we all have, do not bang me, unless we all have our own, you know, set of dollars that we can look at for ourselves and support organizations, you know, as a particular district or as a council member, because that's something that I feel would be even more beneficial, because people are coming to you and they are saying it. This list has been around for an extremely long time. And when you look at it, some of the presidents of these organizations make a lot of money in nonprofits. And here it is. It's like, what are we funding? What are we doing? I'm not questioning their work, but I'm questioning the value of why do they feel the city year after year without having to do anything, not even having an agreement, you know, to get dollars. So it does have to end. This process of Mr. Clendenin making a motion, I can't support it in that way unless, you know, budget is coming back to us going, yes, we do have some room in our budget, or we have a surplus. Because when the millage didn't pass, all of the new funding went away for non-governmental funds. I do support them being in the budget for next year. I said that. I visited them, et cetera, et cetera. But if it's that easy for a council member to make a motion to say, I move to give somebody some money, I'm going to come under new business and do the same exact thing.
Can I address to that first before you speak?
I will hear from Mr. Shelby first.
There's an answer under the charter.
Okay,
that
please.
that may address your questions and your direction. First of all, let me just say that with the expenditure of taxpayer dollars, it is required to have a municipal purpose, as opposed to just a pot of money saying, you know, I personally in this seat like this organization, so I want taxpayer funds to go there. So that's why you normally have a budget with regard to FY25. With regard to that, as a body, when you're presented with the budget, you can address that. Your question or your motion, from as I recall, was with regard to FY24.
Using existed budgeted money out of social services money. I've actually spoken with the administration. There is excess money, enough money to pay for this. Because if it wasn't, then I can't create a budget line. But the money has already been authorized by City Council to spend X amount of money in the social services budget. There's excess money there. So this is just using the budgeted excess money and line iteming it for this organization.
So you're saying there's a social services line that currently exists that has money in it?
Well, if I can, before you go there, because this might factor in, with regard to that, I know that specifically with not-for-profits, there is a line in the budget on the line item page for non-departmental expenditures, where by line you could see what money the non-for-profits get.
Yes,
what you're saying to me may be true, but I'm not aware of that, and certainly the budget analyst can look into it. What I'm familiar with is that once you adopt a fiscal budget for a fiscal year, the city council cannot, on its own volition, do budget changes. And section 7.07 of your charter says, under budget changes, the city council, upon the recommendation of the mayor, shall have the power from time to time during any fiscal year after adoption of the annual budget, therefore by resolution, to reappropriate to any municipal purpose any funds not needed for the purpose originally appropriated, or to appropriate any unappropriated cash surplus to any municipal purpose. And your agenda on your consent docket is filled every week with budget amendments that are initiated and recommended by the administration.
So right now, as this motion stands without being amended, wouldn't that be, okay, now the mayor, I'm requesting, so the mayor could come, so for 24, the mayor could come back and say no, and not recommend it. And she would have the ultimate power.
Ultimately, because it would have to be initiated by her in order for it to come to you. You could make the recommendation, you can make the request. That's
So-
why a lot of your motions to the administration under this charter are in the form of a request to the administration.
So would I need to reword my motion to be able to make that in accordance with the charter?
Yes, in my opinion.
So with permission of the person who seconded this, can we amend my words to, recommend that the mayor allocate $75,000 out of fiscal year '24 money to stepping stones? And then also, the budget people that are listening, as we address this in '25 as well.
We have a motion. Yes, that's the official name. Motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Carlson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I want to vote
No.
It's half the year. We've gone half the
Yeah.
year already. We've gone.
We're going into summer though, because this is very intensive in summer.
And
Yeah,
the others
true.
are going to come in and say the same thing. You're going to start a chain that's never going to end. I don't mind if you get the year, you cut it in 12 months, you give the bad part of the year, but if you're talking about the year, it's got to go month by month by month, what's left.
And
Yes, ma'am.
yes, and if it's,
Wait a minute. She's speaking, and then I'm going to ask for clarity. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Nguyen, when you stood up to present, you said that you were working on this. Can you go into further detail about that, please?
Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm working with the chief financial officer to see if any funds are available. We have, I don't know, I can't speak budget, I don't know what they have, but we are working together. He knows of the request, and I'll have more information once we're able to collaborate more on that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes.
Councilmember Vieira.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this motion, I'm glad to support it, but all it does is memorialize what you're presently doing. So I don't see a problem with it going, and to the extent other organizations come and ask us for help, this fiscal year, we can just say no. And this one, I'm just saying yes to. So, yeah, so I mean, I'm glad to support this. It formalizes what you're doing. I think that's great.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, I think,
Okay, Ms. Nguyen.
Yeah, and so what I said was to see how much funding is available, not the 75,000. If it's 75, great. If it's 15, great, but to work with him to see how much funding is available that we could possibly give to him, the organization this year. And then if there's none available, then of course encourage them to apply for FY25.
Councilmember Carlson.
yeah, I think we would, if the administration agrees, we still have to do a change of budget approval. So it would come back to us again anyway. But the other thing is that you all saw in public comment this morning what people are saying about the community, and folks want jobs and after-school programs. And in particular, we know that Sulphur Springs needs something. And so this is not like a lineup of every nonprofit. This is helping in the short term to solve some specific problems that the community is particularly concerned about. At the forums that the police have been having, people talk about these kind of after-school programs, and they talked about finding jobs. So we need to make sure that we support this. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you able to come back by June 6th with the answer?
Yes, sir, I think either the CFO and or I will be able to come back.
So I will still make the same motion to request that the administration provide that funding for fiscal '24, and with the expectation that you'll come back with June 6th with the answer.
Yes,
Can I
sir.
get clarity on the motion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Who is opposed?
I'm opposed only on the year thing, there's only half a year left. You can't say 24 because they weren't involved in 24. You have other same types of individuals, whether they're good or not, that's not the question. Other 501c3s are gonna come in and say, well, wait a minute. I wanted 30, they gave me 15, and I should have got the other 15 because now you're giving it away half a year. So you're starting a convoluted thing that I know that's not the intent of the motion.
But you also remember that they're going into, where they're gonna spend the money is during the summer programs, so that's, I mean.
I understand
yeah.
that.
So had we even given them in the fall, the bulk of the spending is gonna be this time of
It's not the
year.
use of the money, it's the principle of what others are gonna come and ask you for, that you gave them half of what they wanted. Now you're giving somebody a total of half a year within 6 months. That's all. It's just a difference of opinion on how you do it, that's all.
Motion passes with One member voting no. Councilmember Moran.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, yeah, I'll go ahead on and support it because it has to come back to us anyway for approval
Yes.
under consent. And Ms. Nguyen, it doesn't have to be a motion, but make sure that you mention in this conversation that all of the funds that I asked for the 6 organizations, it would be nice for those to be presented at that same time as well. But I'm not forcing it to be a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 82 and 3 we discussed. Councilmember Carlson was going to make a motion at the end of the meeting regarding those. Item number 84 we discussed. Continued. Item number 85. We have Andrea Zellman, our city attorney, here for 85. Go ahead.
Can I just
Kick
set
it
this
off.
up? This is about the residency, and I know one or more of you are concerned about this in general. The voters voted 2 or 3 times for a residency requirement. If you all don't like the residency requirement, you can make a motion to put on the ballot to have the voters take it off. And so all this was doing is trying to, knowing that it is a requirement of the charter, how do we codify it the same way we've codified other things? In the memo that Ms. Zellman presented and in discussions that she and I had, it is already codified in many ways. And the only piece that's missing really, in my view, is a form that an individual can sign. Right now, the format is that there's a staff person who calls the folks and asks them if they comply, and then they mark it down. But in some ways, that passes on the liability, responsibility to that person tallying it. All this does is there's a form that Ms. Zellman's office created where the person themselves sign that they meet the requirement. And it's not a new requirement, it's not a new definition of requirement, and the penalties are not new, they all existed already. All it is the individual signs off that they did it, not somebody else signing off for them. And so unless Ms. Zellman wants to say anything else, I would just make a motion to accept the recommended form.
Anything else, Ms. Zellman?
I have nothing to add. He summarized it well. And I'll just remind council that Councilwoman, and I'm sorry, Andrea Zellman, City Attorney, Councilwoman Hurtak made a motion for us to come back on June 6th to talk about whether it's possible to reduce the list of those who are subject to the charter requirement. So we will be discussing the residency requirements again, but for purposes of today, I think Councilman Carlson summarized the issue well.
Yes. Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Can you say that with a little bit more tolerance?
Yes.
Does it have a second? If it doesn't have a second, I guess my motion is just to accept the recommended form.
I'll second for discussion.
All right, we have a second. Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted, just so my point's clear, I think that, and I heard it from somebody, I don't know who I heard it from today, and I agree with that assessment, that possibly we've outlived the usefulness of this. Again, I think I've stated this from the dais as well, that the residency requirement, the city of Tampa is such our boundaries, it's not like years gone by before Mr. Greco annexed New Tampa. It was a convoluted city, and whether you're in or you're out, we're a big metropolitan area now, and what impacts the city of Tampa if you live out slightly outside the boundaries or whatever, it's you're still being impacted by the city. You're in the same media market, you're experiencing the same life the rest of us are. I think I'd be willing to be on the side of a vote if we were to put this before the voters again on a charter amendment, only because it inhibits us to recruit the best and brightest candidates. I understand some of the concerns about it, but I think the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people is moving past this and being able to recruit the best and brightest for the city of Tampa.
Councilman Miranda, then Henderson.
I think you might have heard it casually when I mentioned it, but let me put it this way, if I remember. If you're looking for the best and the brightest, and that person is 1 block outside of the city of Tampa, and that could be just the other side of the airport, which is much closer than any other thing we have. That person then is going to say, well, I live here, I got a house here, but I got to move somewhere in the city of Tampa. So I either got to pay rent and lie to myself, so the salary that I give me is not commensurate with what I can get where I'm at. Why should I apply? That person may be the best person. So we're cutting, and I understand there's going to have to be a vote taken at election time whether they want to change the charter. I think this is a charter, isn't it? Mm-hmm. When I see 601 and 603, I would assume it's in the charter.
Yes.
So that's going to be a charter thing that's going to have to come up maybe in Does it have to come up in a city election, or can that be put in any,
It could be done in November, but if council's going there,
No, I'm just
we would
asking.
need to act very quickly.
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah, it would, yes.
That's all I want to know. But I agree that if you're really looking to have the top notch, then why you squeezing it to an area so small? Compared to Hillsborough County, we're small in land-wise. We're only about a third of the population in the county.
And linear, we're linear city, you know, so.
We're up vertical, you're right. Linear gets mixed up with line in my mind.
Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Henderson and Carlson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say on this particular issue is that, the majority of the staff does live in the city, and I understand that. There was only a few people, less than 10 people on the list that even needed the waiver. Am I correct about that? About 10, wasn't it?
I need to
It was
get my
less, I think it was
information
less than 10.
back again,
And
yeah.
the thing that stands out in my mind is we are in a housing crisis. So for anyone who doesn't fall into that particular category to try to look for a house in the city of Tampa would be putting them in a very, very challenging situation when it comes to housing. It's difficult for, you could lose a bid on a house. I saw a woman on the news who had attempted 20 times to buy a house in the city of Tampa, and she lost out, based on the bidding process. So it's also a financial issue where we shouldn't pigeonhole people to this process and, let the voters decide. But I can see why it's not necessary, especially when the majority of the staff does live within the city limits.
Yes.
Yeah, just to remind everybody, that whole discussion about the charter, that's another time. Somebody else can put that on the agenda. It has been voted on 2 or 3 times by the voters, but that's a separate discussion. The only discussion today is that the process, since it is law, we, just like any of the other laws, we need to follow through with it. And all this does is the current process already has most of the pieces that I had asked the question about. Thanks to Ms. Zellman for letting us know all that. So the only difference right now is that once a year, a staff person calls up each of these folks and asks them if they're in compliance or not. The difference now is that it won't be on a person to call them, it will be a form that they fill out themselves. That's the only difference that we're voting on right now. We're not voting on whether we want this or not, we're just voting on accepting the form that was recommended to us, that's it. So that it's self-reported rather than a person being responsible for collecting it.
I'm not questioning Mr. Carlson at all, but I'd like to look at the form the way it's written now, so I can make a.
You should have it. It was attached to the memo.
Yeah, it was in the memo.
This is the memo here, this is how it's written now in the form that it is.
The
that
form
every,
was attachment.
Within 30-day notice, a change of address establishes a penalty making false statements resulting in immediate termination, prohibition, returning to the city of Tampa as an employer consultant for a period of 1 year following termination. That's what it says?
It's
All of those
Exhibit
are-
A at the top with an affidavit of residency elector status.
All of those rules are the
No, there's
existing
actually a
rules.
form that was attached to
It's
the
a
memo,
form,
she's saying.
and it has a place for a notary signature
I
at the
don't have
bottom.
All the rules are the existing rules. They're the ones that are already in the manual and everything. We're not changing those. All we're doing is getting the person to fill out the form themselves instead of a staff person doing it.
I'm happy. They should have this when you run for office as a candidate.
Yeah.
And have you sign. That's a penalty of law that you go to jail or something if you don't live in the city and say you are. Because this is only for a department, a person living here. What about the elected officials? They should sign what you want here, what we want here. I shouldn't say you, you're just the person they call to write it. But they should sign this for the elected officials.
I'll second that motion
Whole
later.
separate issue. Yeah, I was
That's where you
gonna say,
should
that's
start.
governed
Start
by
with an
election
employee.
law, and the supervisor of elections, has primary
I
responsibility.
can't go for this unless it's the employee, that the people seeking office do the same thing. I'm no better than anybody else.
We don't have authority over that, but we do have authority over this.
And that, it may, I'm sorry, Martin Shelby, City Council Attorney, it may very well be the case that under the charter, the supervisor of elections is the election officer for the city. So if that is a concern, we can have that discussion with the
He
supervisor
or
of
she may
elections.
be, but if you put it in an ordinance, you don't need a supervisor.
We're not
of
putting it in an ordinance, this is just a form that HR
Well,
is
maybe we'll
using.
have an ordinance drawn. There should be an ordinance in the city of Tampa then.
Well, that was where this started, and as I explained to
I'm not against
Councilman
it.
Carlson,
Let's
we
start
already
with
have
us.
it in the chart, it's already codified in the
You put the
charter.
mayor and the city council here, and I'll vote for it 10 times.
I don't care. But the other thing which we haven't talked about is that by charter, the mayor runs the administration, not us. And so the mayor can use this form with or without our vote, but the idea here is just to show that we agree with the form. That's all.
I understand, but it takes 5 votes to override the mayor. You got 7 votes to override the mayor in this one, I think.
No, even if we vote unanimously, I think she's, by charter, she still has the.
I mean, just to be clear, you don't actually have to vote on the form. The mayor does have authority over all these personnel issues. And the form was already designed to go into effect. I think what Councilman Carlson is suggesting is just for council to agree that that's an appropriate response and that it is consistent with the charter and then consistent with what he was trying to accomplish.
And Ms. Zellman's team wrote it. I didn't write it or have any input to it.
Well, I would love to vote for it, but as long as the public, the elected officials not here, I won't support it.
You know, I think that's something that's worthy of a workshop to expand this. I don't think there's any harm in doing what Councilman Carson's asked us to do on this. I think it's worthy of a workshop, just like I think when we talk about this residency thing, carrot versus stick. I know I've spoken with the chief of staff about this. I think we should pursue a COLA for city employees that live within the city. Use it as an incentive instead of penalty, you know, as we know the cost of living within the city. So in lieu of maybe other types of compensation incentives or increases, we could look at rewarding people that live within the city. So maybe that's something we could add in a workshop as well. I'm not going to do that today, but it's just something to set in your mind to think about.
And I'm not opposed to Mr. Carlson to it, but I guarantee you there's I'd say 30 to 35%, maybe higher, of all our employees live outside the city limits because they can't afford to live in the city of Tampa. Unless you bought a house in 1960 or 1950 and you haven't sold it. Because if you did, you can't buy another one for what you sold it for. It doesn't work.
I say let's call the question.
Yeah, all this is the motion is to approve the form, show our approval of the form that the staff created. It doesn't create any new rules or anything. All it is it allows us, it supports the staff's effort to create a form.
All right, the question has been called. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
I want to
Any
vote
opposed?
for it with one caveat.
Tell me.
Are you ready? I'm not going to say it. No. You wrote this, and I'm not questioning it at all, but do you think that if it's just a form, does it carry any weight in court of law?
Yeah, so what I explained in the memo is, under our personnel manual, if someone were to sign this form and basically make an untrue statement about their residency, under our personnel manual, they're subject to dismissal. That's cause for dismissal.
Fair enough.
And that's existing rules.
And on the form, they're acknowledging that is the case. And that's true today. If someone lies about their residency.
The process right now is they tell a staff person, and so you could argue that the same thing, that they didn't tell the truth to the staff person, but we're not changing the rules.
I think this passed, and I think we need to move on.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that a yes vote, Councilmember Miranda?
I'm fine, but just let me read this one thing. We'll define the proof of residency as homestead exempt property. That means you have to have a house.
No, that's not on the form. You're reading from the motion, the original motion.
I said earlier I didn't have the form.
No, this is just what's in the agenda. The copy is different.
I brought
All right.
an earlier version.
It doesn't have that, I'm fine.
say
If it doesn't have that, I'm fine, because all you gotta do is write a check, give it to somebody, give the money back, and you have a resident requirement. Give me a break.
All right, that was a unanimous yes vote.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And
Next up is
congratulations, Councilman Miranda, on your honor today.
Thank you very much.
Item number 86, this is Councilmember Vieira's item.
So, a couple of things. We've been working on this, the Racial Reconciliation Committee, myself, my aide, Brandon, and Mr. Shelby. I wanted to thank Martin Shelby for the work that he's done on this. We've spent a lot of time on this, and so I think, Mr. Shelby, we can say that we have 90% of what we want today, and so I'll talk about that very briefly. The issue of the facilitator, Mr. Shelby.
Yes.
We're talking about, is everyone here aware of Community Tampa Bay?
Yes.
Right? Okay. We're speaking to them. We think we're gonna bring that in for a landing, but we don't have it yet. So, Mr. Shelby, do you think that we should have the facilitator voted on, the contract or the resolution for the facilitator voted on in 2 weeks? Because we can't next week.
June 6th or June 20th? Well, those are both regular.
Yeah,
Well,
just to
no,
get it
2 weeks
earlier.
is, 2 weeks, I think, is rather short, because
is.
what we have to do is, we have to get, obviously, something in writing from them, and then we have to put it in a form that allows the city to be able to, and we have to put it in a form where, I guess, you'd pass it by resolution. And then, I guess you're going to be discussing other items in addition to the appointment. You're also going to have the funding
Yes.
for that.
So what we have to find out is their budget. And for background, Community Tampa Bay does a lot of work in the community on issues just like this involving equity, inclusion, difficult discussions, et cetera. As, I don't know if I have to say, they gave me an award 2 weeks ago. This has nothing to do with obviously them picking them out. They're a wonderful organization, and my good friend Tammy Bryant Spratling helps run that organization with some really good people. So that would probably have to be brought. When do you think, sir?
So the clerk has
my
asked that
question-
nothing else on June 6th. It's packed.
But I don't think June 6th is sufficient time.
Okay.
I think, here's my recommendation. My recommendation is, I believe you have a couple of motions.
Yep.
And depending on whether those motions pass, determine what we can bring back. So I think my recommendation is that I will get more information with Brannon, Jordan Lazaro, your legislative aide, and then have something to report back to City Council either at the next night meeting or on the 6th, and have it put on for the next, as soon as possible,
Okay.
to have
So
in that process.
How about that, Mr. Shelby, which is after our land use hearings tomorrow evening, you report on the status. We'll work, again, we'll continue to work together. We put in time, et cetera, and we can do that, and then I can make the motion at that
Next
time.
Thursday evening.
Yes, sir.
Not tomorrow. Don't scare me that we scheduled.
I'm sorry, I've been up, I woke up in Texas today, so I'm very tired.
Well, the thing is, Councilwoman Vieira, my suggestion for you is to present the motion that you have. I have presented the resolution. I've distributed it to the council members. What's on the agenda is to report specifically on the membership. And I believe you have that where you can bring that home today.
Yes, sir.
And
So-
make that clear.
And I will, so thank you very much, and everyone put in their committee members who I know reflect what their vision is for this committee. I know Councilman Hurtak isn't here, and I wanted to highlight Daryl Heisch, who's here, who she put on there, and obviously a man who did a lot to move this thing forward. I say that because Councilwoman Hurtak's not here. But I will say, as a point of personal privilege, by the way, the one that I was most impressed by was Dr. Cheryl Rodriguez.
Of course.
Well done, well done.
Of course.
Where I come
Modest
from,
in you?
con mi gente, she's a wonderful lady. So I mean that, she's awesome.
I thought I had the best.
No, you
No,
don't.
Dr. Cheryl Rodriguez,
All right.
she's pretty cool. So,
I have the best.
So if I may, I'd move this resolution
Second.
2024, making official the members of this committee.
Can I,
We have a
because
motion
reference my
and a
last name.
second.
So I just so people know that initially I had, a name had been submitted. That person had had some personal conflict that had to withdraw. Subsequent to that, I have named Malik Moore, who is actually in the audience. You want to stand up for a second? People, if you don't know, is currently working with Representative Diane Hart. And I'm happy to tell you that Malik is 24 years old. So he brings a youth perspective to the committee, which I think is important. That was one of the things that I thought was very valuable, and his input. So for mine, some people may have seen a different name there, but I'm very happy that Malik accepted this challenge, and with the support of his boss, Diane, and with the experience that he has with Tallahassee, the connection now with the legislature, and a very key member of the legislature that is in the city of Tampa, and Ms. Diane Hart. I think he's going to bring a great perspective. So thank you, Malik.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
And a second motion I have to make on this, if I may. So, Mr. Shelby, you put on here, well, let me first move, or state what it is. I move to request administration prepare a mid-year budget resolution, here we go again, for presentation to City Council for contractual services within the City Council budget for expenses related to our City of Tampa Racial Reconciliation Committee. And Mr. Shelby, you indicated 15,000. Do you think we ought to do, we won't need it, but 25, just so we don't have to go back? It's, yeah, for the facilitator, it's expensive.
I'm in the wrong business. For a facilitator.
Yeah, because there's gonna be a number of meetings.
I'll
Yeah.
facilitate for half that.
You can't, that's a compliment.
So you
Racial reconciliation committee, really?
you recommended 15,000?
I discussed
So
the
is
figure,
that-
I discussed the figure with your legislative aid. We had a dollar amount that was a ballpark that was presented to us.
Then
We
let's-
crunched the numbers determining how many meetings, and we put a little bit of a contingency in there. And the thing is, I understand what you're saying, sir. If it's not enough money, and we in fact do need it, you would have to come back for a budget amendment.
Just do a 2025.
I think you should do 25. You and I do kind of this for a living, and so and
that's why I did
it's very time consuming. It's more time. It's not just the time you spend in the meeting. You have to spend time, working with the board members and others. So
Yeah, I would support 25. It's better to be safe and have it.
So Mr. Shelby, no objection to that, I assume?
No, sir.
Okay, yeah.
We have a motion?
Yes, sir.
And we have a second? Second?
Second.
No, you're the motion maker.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you, council.
Thank you. I'm going to go sign this resolution after the meeting. All right, then we have item number 87. This is for the, yes, this is for the Hillsborough River and Technical Advisory Committee. I believe we have 3 applicants. Who will be bringing that up? Is it you or do we have
Nobody's
Shirley
bringing that up.
Coxwell?
This is unusual. This is not a standing board that you normally have applications for. This is for the Technical Advisory Committee of the Hillsborough River Board. And I believe a gentleman who has served on it for a very long time, Mr. Richard Formica, is going to be stepping down. And so what you have before you is you have 3 applications, council. If you want to have them appear, they have not been invited, but if you want them to appear, they have had the opportunity, certainly if they wanted to come to either be in touch with you personally or to come to public comment. You could be prepared to vote today to make the recommendation.
If I wanted to make a motion for a specific candidate, could I do that now?
Absolutely.
Then I'm going to pass this gavel, and I'm going to make a motion for Joel.
Recognize you yet?
Recognize.
Chair Pro Tem recognizes Chairman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. I make a motion for Joel Brown.
Second.
Joe Brown from where?
He's with Tico, yeah.
Joel worked with Swift Mud before, so he knows about water. He has extensive experience and knowledge of water, and from a professional point of view.
Yeah, he has. I think for something like this.
So we have a motion, a second. Is there discussion?
He appointed one of the applicants.
Councilman Vieira.
Yes, sir. I came here committed, and I think the world of Joel, and as a disclosure, I called him and I said I didn't know you were applying for this when I made a commitment to vote for Carrie Lewis, so that explains my vote. Joel is wonderful, so wonderful that I called him today and said I didn't know he applied, but that'll be my vote again, nothing anti-Joel.
Councilman Vieira, Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, and each of these people are representing themselves. They're not representing their organizations. So we're appointing them as individuals.
Yeah.
Sure, we at least see them public. I mean, we know who they are, but
I don't know if there's a need. I mean, I think if they wanted to be here, they could have been, but.
But the thing is, they were, in all
they were never
total
invited.
disclosure, they were not invited to appear for the specific purpose like you would have if it was a regular board approval. If you do want to do that.
We just put a bunch of people on the Racial Reconciliation Committee and they weren't here.
That is true.
But we also have people who come here for CRAs that show up because they're invited.
Right. I mean, I'm okay with the question. So, would anybody from this council like to make a motion different than this? But right now, this is what's on the table.
I understand that's the only thing on the table.
May I just, and not this should affect your decision, but I have been informed that Mr. Formica is going to be leaving and that position will not be filled. So if you do continue it down the road, if there is if there's a need for a representative, you'll have a vacancy at that time, not that.
His last day would be June the 18th.
So absent a substitute motion, the motion on the floor is the appointment of the representative for the River Board by Councilman, Technical Advisory Committee.
I'm the member.
And the maker of the motion is Chairman Maniscalco with a second. All those in favor? You had
Does
something?
anybody know what the duties are of this position?
The Technical Advisory Committee for the River Board? Has anybody here served on the River Board?
I was on the River Board for 4 years, and I was just appointed to be back on the River Board. So you have representatives from Temple Terrace, one, County Commission and City of Tampa. You have those that work there, they might be with the Planning Commission, different capacities. They have their meetings. Then you have the Technical Advisory Committee, which would be, like Mr. Formica served, I think, like 20 years, maybe more.
10, at least 10.
At least 10, but he was, I mean, even from
Do
before
you
I
know how
got
long
elected.
Mr. Formica served? Do you know how long Mr. Formica has served? Okay, I thought we did. Okay, I thought at least 10 years.
So what
Mr. Shelby, you're out of order.
I'm sorry.
So what the board does, for example, we would approve like dock permits. You have the Technical Advisory Committee members, which would be in the audience. They would be participating in public comment, but they are the board members that, again, are Temple Terrace, Tampa, and Hillsborough County, so. But that's it.
Okay, so once again, the motion on the floor is the appointment. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
What?
We have one.
We have Sean, is it College? Yes.
What about Mr. College?
He's with the River Board. He's also appeared many times here before council.
The option, and I guess I'm going to ask, or the chair would ask for a roll call vote, just to be clear. What you're doing, what you have on the floor is not a ballot. What you have now is just somebody making the motion, which is one way of doing it. The other way is if council wants to do it by a ballot, we can. Or what you can do is, I've just been informed by Ms. Edwards that they need somebody by August. So if you want to set this for June 16th with invitations for them to come in,
Okay,
and
first,
then do it by ballot.
excuse me, Mr. Shelby,
Yes.
we've already had a vote. The vote's been cast. It was
Okay.
6-1.
It was 6-1? I didn't catch
Yes,
that.
so Joel Brown is now the city council appointment for the Technical Advisory Committee.
Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Shelby, your item number 88.
I am. Oh, I am.
It's not really me, it's you, and these are your rules, council. I presented to you.
A draft for your consideration of the amended and restated rules of procedure based on the action summary, the minutes of your special call meeting, the beginning of last month. And your process for amendment is to read it by title today, and then it comes back to you on June 6th for a second reading, and at the next subsequent meeting after that on the 20th, it takes effect.
Okay.
If you have any changes, additions, substitutions, or deletions, you may raise them at any time before they're adopted, and these are your rules, so I present them to you for your consideration.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make, after the last meeting, when we discussed the rules, had been a point made that the clerk's office was going to participate in assisting public comment. That clerk's office clarified that in an email saying they were not. So I've already asked, and that question has been answered, and I got shot down hard in flames. So, but I think it would probably be appropriate for somebody else to revisit that discussion and to assist the clerk's office in accomplishing their duties. It's something that they have had difficulty with in transcribing, that it all would be the speaker cards, the registration with speaker cards, so that people would have their names filled out, and that would assist them greatly. And I've heard their pleas, and I'm empathetic to it. But again, I've brought it up. I'm not going to bring it up again.
Wait, Mr. Shelby, Councilmember Carlson, Vieira. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Just so, and Councilman Clendon, you may not know this, and council may not know this, but it's come to my attention that there may be ways within the administration that they are working for technology to be able to address these sort of things, to assist the clerk. So it may be something that is be useful to council, but it's being in the process of being formulated. My suggestion would be, you could take action on that, but I think that, from what I understand from the clerk's office, is there may be ways that technologically they will be able to address this.
Well, it's my understanding it'd be a kiosk, but that seems like it's not something that is immediate, so this would be more of this could be, even if that ultimately comes to pass, this could be a bridge to that point as well.
That is a good point, sir,
Yeah,
yes.
a bridge. Yeah.
Mr. Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, this is another issue related, but we've talked off and on about getting a legislative aid for the chair, which Lisa won't like because she loves working double, triple time. But I know the chair is supposed to come up with that idea, but if we had a chair's aide that would float with the chair, or it could be a temp that the chair hires, but that person could help with that and also help with the overflow and everything. It's not fair. Now this is the third year that Lisa's done it. It's not fair to dump it all on any of the aides because it's a full-time job. County, each of them has 2 aides. The legislature, they have several. It seems we all have 1, and they're maxed out. If we had just a chair's aide, they could help with that.
That's something that I did just think about with someone brainstorming, and yeah, that's something that I would consider. I would make the motion and bring it up, meaning a legislative aide that travels with whoever the chair is. You know, basically whoever the department head is, they get that aide.
Who's in charge of running meetings and running the business of the council?
Yeah, I would consider this kind of out of order with what's on the table. I think that's something we probably should consider in new business and for fiscal year 25 possibly.
I was going to bring it up in 2 years. But.
Yeah, but I mean, because I would also have concerns about not having the ability to have, if you're the chair, not have your own person. But and I think, by the way, and I think Lisa does such a tremendous job. I think we should add to her duties because clearly she's underworked. Because she likes this and want. So,
I'm going to make a motion for another commendation.
So emotional, maybe some emotional well-being therapy because she likes this stuff. But anyway, so Councilman Vera, I think you had something to say.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. Yes. So Mr. Shelby, these are all of our rules that we voted on as a package.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's one other thing that I do want to point out to you.
And I sent this out in my email to you when I sent this earlier this week. The names of the standing committees were updated to be consistent with the changes that have taken over the past 20 years at least in the administration. So some of the committees are pretty much identical, but some of the names have changed. The Public Safety Committee remains the same. The Public Works, actually, rather than go through it, let me just say it. This most significant change is that stormwater moves from Public Works to the Mobility and Asset Management Committee because that is where now stormwater takes place. It works hand in hand with transportation, and Vic Bede, who you just spent time with today, is now in charge of stormwater. And I've had an opportunity to talk with the council members who had that and have brought that to their attention. But other than that, this is a comprehensive change to your rules, but there's nothing in here that you haven't, other than that, already discussed. The only thing that you really haven't talked about that actually came up today was the fact of the timer. The timer refers to commendations. The timer refers to presentations. Under commendations and presentations, it refers to city council, but it doesn't refer to staff reports. So one of the things that you might want to look at, and you don't even have to put it in your rules, it would be a question for the chair to begin before somebody makes a staff presentation, how much time do you require?
Yes.
So therefore, you set the timer for that particular time, and if they need more additional time, it's up to council whether to
Yeah, but I'm
grant it.
happy to do that so we can be as efficient as possible. And if they're in the middle of a thought or a sentence, or they say, hey, I'm going to wrap it up in 60 seconds, 30, whatever it is, I'll take it from there just to keep it organized. But if it's at the discretion of council to say, hey, this is very lengthy and complicated, we need another 5 minutes, whatever it is, we'll take it from there. But in the meantime, we'll be mindful of the time. Yes.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, thank you. I asked that because there were some things I voted against. I'll vote for the whole thing because it's, I support 99% of it. I do want to restate just my objection that with the issue on the resolutions. I specifically want to target that because I strongly oppose the move by council to say that we don't do resolutions if it's not, 100% related to city business. I think that's very, very misguided. Obviously, I'll still vote for everything, but I do want to state my objection to that. In effect, we're giving the public more, I don't want to say expression rights, but to an extent than what council members are going to get. And again, if there's something that we oppose, right, that somebody asks us to bring something forward, we can tell them no. But now, under this rule, we can go, well, we have to say no to everything. And I think we should have the potential to say no on something, but whatever, that's fine. With regards to public comment, the phone issue, being able, I wish there was a way, and I'm not reopening this, but I wish there was a way that we could look at public comment for non-quasi-judicial items and say that you have to have a hardship to call for quasi-judicial. I think that's different because that's, the public has vested rights and all that stuff, and we don't want to interfere with that necessarily at all. But for regular public comment, if somebody has a hardship, disability, or you can't leave the house, or whatever it may be, right? Having that, I think we ought to look at that in the future. But again, I'm glad to vote for this, and I do support, as Councilman Clendenin motion for last time we discussed this, the cards for public comment. I'm glad. I mean, if you want to bring that up again for a vote, maybe there's reconsideration, sir. We had 2 votes.
I'd be happy to second your motion.
Then, if I may, I do motion to have, I don't want to use the word reconsideration, but I do motion for us to amend the rules to have, for public comment, card registration. That's it. So I'll state why I support this, okay? This is not an unreasonable burden. This is not any kind of a burden. Public comment, if you compare us, you have one side the city of Tampa, you have the other side Hillsborough County. I don't want to go all the way where Hillsborough County. There's nothing against our friends in the county commission, right? We're here. I just want to go here. And I think this gives us more guardrails on public comment. Broken windows. We talked this morning about James Q. Wilson and broken windows, right? Take care of little things. Take care of little things. And by having the cards, you put in some order into public comment. You put in the idea that we're going to have an expectation of order. If you come here, you want to speak, you got to fill out a card. You don't got to register before. You don't got to give us your social security number and who you voted for in the 1988 presidential election. Just fill out a card. That's not unreasonable. How does that undermine anything? It gives us a little bit of order. So that's why I make that motion.
I second that, yes. And I think, again, I want to emphasize that I don't know if people recognize, I didn't realize that until I got on council and I see how much we burden the clerk's office. I mean, the clerk's office is really, really tasked by some of our whimsy and things that we do. And I think this is a very minor effort to significantly reduce their workload and their ability to conduct business and do what they need to do. So on behalf of everybody that works at the clerk's office, thank you for what you do. And I hope that the council supports this to help you guys out.
We have a motion and we have a second. This is for the cards. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Mr. Shelby, you have the package.
You don't have to announce that. That'll show up in the minutes, right? I just want to be absolutely
clear.
That unanimous with one absent.
Being absent.
I know. Lisa said it was okay, so. Can I have a motion to adopt the rules as presented by Mr. Shelby?
All you have to do today is read the title. I will make some change that effectuates this motion today and bring that back on June 6th. You'll have an opportunity to read it again a second time, and on June 20th it becomes effective.
Councilman Vieira, do you want to read it?
Just the title.
Just the title.
Where's?
It's on the agenda.
88.
Yeah.
Sorry. Pass a resolution adopting rules of procedure as amended and restated in its entirety, governing the meetings of the city of Tampa, or city council of the city of Tampa, providing an effective date. Again, I object to the resolution thing, but I'm still voting yes. Thank you.
Councilmember Vieira with a very speedy motion. Second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Objection noted.
Thank you, council. Thank you very much.
All right, that concludes our agenda. Okay, just a couple items.
Yes, Chairman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. First, some sad news regarding the passing of Michael Smith, known as MD. He was a TPD officer beginning in 1970, but we knew him here as a gentleman that stayed with us and protected us during many city council meetings for a long, long time. His daughter, as you know, is Kimberly Sullivan, here with the city. She's our employee relations manager. And this gentleman was also father-in-law to Brian Sullivan, our beloved Brian Sullivan with CCTV, which is on the other side of the wall here. The gentleman spent more than 50 years with TPD, and he passed away, I believe it was May 6, so just a few weeks ago, but he served 5 years as a reserve officer at City Council. Always a smiling face, wonderful gentleman. If you knew him, you know, always great to see him. The services will be tomorrow at Congregation Shara Zedek right there on Swan. I don't have a time, but the pallbearers will be the Tampa Police Honor Guard. He will certainly be missed by many, many people. So I'm going to offer my condolences to the family. And second, I'd like to make a motion for the Citizens Review Board chairperson and TPD coordinator to appear at the June 6th regular session meeting with a time certain of 10 a.m. to present their annual report.
Second. We have a motion by Chairman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Miranda. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, and a belated happy birthday to Councilmember Bill Carlson. And an
Happy
early happy
birthday.
birthday to my legislative aide, Lisa Edwards. We can celebrate next Thursday. I'm sure I'll get a cake, but early happy birthday to her. Thank you very much.
Bada bing.
Oh, and my stepdaughter Whitney, 1 day off. She
Any
will be
others?
12 years old. And also former city council member Mike Suarez is also celebrating a birthday, I think, on Monday. I think I got everybody. Oh, and my little cousin had a birthday this week. And my childhood friend from the 3rd grade. He turned
Okay, now
40.
you're out of order.
All right, thank you very much. I think I got everybody. All right, Councilmember Miranda, do you have?
Thank you. One, I'd like to make a motion to present a commendation to Mr. Richard Formica, who served as a representative in the River Board Technical Advisory Council for 11 years as a volunteer. His last day would be June the 18th in the River Board Technical Advisory Council meeting. I would like to present this commendation to Mr. Formica on Thursday, June 20th.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anything else, sir?
That's it, sir.
Yes, sir. Councilman Vieira.
First, I got a text from Daryl Heisch, which I did send to my city phone, Mr. Shelby, where he indicated that he thought that committee members for the racial reconciliation were going to be recognized, et cetera. May I, just for his sake, just quickly read the
Absolutely.
names,
Go ahead,
if I
sir.
may. Mr. Heisch had requested that. So Chairman Maniscalco appointed Jeffrey Johnson. Councilman Clendenin appointed Malik Moore. Councilwoman Lynn Hertak, like I said, appointed Mr. Heisch. Councilman Bill Carlson appointed Ms. Connie Burton. Councilwoman Gwendolyn Henderson appointed Dr. Cheryl Rodriguez. Councilman Charlie Miranda appointed Bishop Tom Scott. I appointed Pastor Christopher Harris. The NAACP of Hillsborough appointed Jarvis Al-Alamin. Urban League appointed Kia Wilson. Tampa Bay History Center appointed Fred Hearns. The Tampa Bay Coalition of Clergy appointed Reverend Cleveland Sutton, formerly of TPD. A. Brown Ministries appointed Robert Blunt. And Florida Rising appointed Robin Lockett. So just...
I think it's a great committee.
May I, Mr. Chairman, in all seriousness, I do have to address something about this committee. And I'm glad you brought it back because I was going to do it under new business, but I think it may have been more appropriate then, but it's appropriate now. Council, you just passed a resolution today that in its section 2 says the provisions set forth in resolution number 2024-344 shall govern the conduct of the committee. And that is the one that established the committee that you passed in April.
Yeah.
So resolution 220, number 568, does not govern this committee. And I just want to make that clear. But I do want to also, yes, so I do also want to say something else that's in that section because it is very relevant. And if those people who are on the committee are watching, I will be contacting them because in section 2, the last sentence says, or the last 2 sentences say the following. All meetings and deliberations of the committee shall be conducted conducted in and open to the public. All members shall be subject to the state of Florida public records and sunshine laws and the code of ethics of the city of Tampa. So my point is, respectfully, with great congratulations, I inform all members of that committee that as of today, you are now a sunshine board, which you may not, with each other, outside of the sunshine, now conduct business that could reasonably come before the committee. So in advance of the first meeting, I will tell you that right now, it would be improper and a violation of Florida statutes to discuss anything with any other member of the committee that may reasonably come before that committee without being at a noticed public meeting. Thank you.
Yes.
And
Yes, sir.
thank you. Mr. Shelby, may we have you write, that in a letter to the committee members that's digestible? Please, thank you, yeah, because they would have no idea. Listen, I'm an attorney. When I was on the Civil Service Review Board, I was like, what? So yeah, we don't want that. Thank you.
And certainly what we don't want to do is, because this committee's going to make recommendations, and if they do violate the sunshine law, it could undercut whatever city council decides it wants to do, because the committee did not operate in the sunshine.
Yeah, please make sure you include in there that also extends to them addressing these issues through their CACs and other organizations that they may be a part of. Because it's the same thing,
Well, and the thing is, they also cannot act as conduits.
That's right.
And they have to be, and now that if they are also on a member of the CAC, and that is also a sunshine board, they have to also be very careful as well. But of course, at the first meeting of that committee, I will be present to go over the rules of the sunshine laws with them.
Mr. Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, and public records law, that you're including that, right?
Yeah, he did. He said.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Because
So
one of the problems of these committees is that when I was on the charter review, we didn't have a city email, so we had to maintain all those records ourselves. And the other thing is it means they can't talk to each other. It doesn't mean they cannot talk to us. So sometimes people have questions about that.
Certainly not.
We're not on the same body.
They have, and I should let you know that, you cannot talk with each other, but you certainly can meet with all of them individually.
Yeah.
But the two of them cannot meet with you
That's
at the
right.
same time.
Yeah, exactly.
The last thing, a member of the community recommended that we shorten the process by creating a chair for that. I don't think we should do it right now, but it was very difficult in the charter review because we didn't know each other, and suddenly, in that case, they didn't pick a chair, and I think that was worse than maybe not than creating.
Go ahead.
I think, I actually believe that committees should pick their own chairs, but, because, the dynamics of the committee, I think that they have that buy-in to it. I can't imagine operating on a committee that doesn't pick its own chair, or that you said didn't have a chair at all.
But there's a facilitator.
That was
too,
crazy. Oh, yeah. But you still need a chair. Clearly that should be the expectation of this committee, is that they, did we create rules for them, for the committee, for picking a chair?
If I may?
Yes.
It says that the committee shall have a chair, a vice chair, but there were none specified in there, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, sir?
Yeah, just really quick, I have to do two cleanup motions really fast. I motioned this morning on October 3rd of 2024, Tampa Fire Rescue reporting. I want to amend that motion to include K-Bar Ranch as well in the list of items.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Yeah, last week I also motioned on the Italian Club property and the city of Tampa, strike that, the adjacent property, and I motioned for staff to report on that. I had a discussion with Carl Brody, the attorney handling that, and it has to be real estate department. So if I may, I motion to amend that.
I'm going to recuse myself because I'm
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I have that vote be announced, please, for the purposes of the minutes, just so we're clear?
Motion carried unanimously with Carlson abstaining and Miranda and Hurtak absent a vote.
Thank you.
And that is it, sir. Thank you.
Anything, Councilmember Henderson?
No, sir, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Clendenin.
Nothing.
Councilmember Carlson, you had a few motions?
Yeah, I have a couple cleanup ones and then one from this morning. These are motions that staff requested for continuances. I'm just going to read it. These are items that are on future agendas that they want to move to a later date. so as not to cause confusion. So I motion to continue the following items. Oh, also, I'm going to be, I announced this a year ago, but every year I go to an international conference for my industry, and so I'm going to be in Brazil next week when you guys are meeting, and so the items that I had put on the agenda we're going to continue. So I motion to continue the following items from May 23rd, 2024 workshop to June 27th, 2024. Number one is discussion on how and why design exceptions are made to projects after City Council has approved rezonings. Number two is staff to report to have City Council approve contract or parking plans with public input for major construction projects. And number three is administration to provide an update on the capital improvement project, CIP.
Second. And again, that date was, I'm sorry.
Moving these three items from May 23rd to June 27th. Huh?
June 27th.
That's the second. I'll do that one in a minute.
State your name, sir. I'm kidding. Councilman Carlson with the motion of continuing, second from Councilmember Vieira. Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second one, this is again a clean one. In accordance with impending workshop changes, I would also like to continue the following items from the June 27th, 2024 workshop to the August 29th workshop. Number one, legal staff to discuss drafting a possible ordinance that would require purchasing, contract administration, real estate to get at least 3 bids for items that exceed $5 million. And number two, staff to move forward with the mobility multimodal impact fee study to move forward to initiate the increase in impact fees. Further, that staff provide an update on the progress of the study.
We have a motion from Councilmember Carlson, second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So the item that, thank you, the item that we were talking about this morning, I had a long conversation with Susan Johns-Falez and Abby Feely about the entertainment districts, and we can have a long discussion of this. I'll make it short. There was confusion about what the motion was, and there's not exactly great case studies that they were able to find. The problem is that there are areas like Howard Avenue where the neighborhood never asked for it to have an entertainment district or a bar district next to them. There's nothing called there's no formal designation of an entertainment district or bar district. But what happened is that over time, previous city councils, I think before any of us were on council, approved liquor license and even put the hours of operation and site plan. And so it happens that there was a shooting on Sunday night. This issue was coming up anyway, but the neighborhoods have been upset about this for a long time. Originally it was a restaurant area, and now there's this concentration of alcohol licenses. So we can't take those away, although Abby and Susan are looking to try to figure out how to regulate, especially Howard Avenue. But the problem is there are areas like on Florida Avenue and like Tampa Heights, Seminole Heights, where we're approving lots of liquor licenses, and if it's one by one, we just waive the distance because we're not looking at it in the context. And so what we're doing indirectly is creating entertainment districts. And so taking all of that discussion with them, what I'd like to do is make a motion to add to the August 29th workshop a discussion about how to better regulate, prevent, or create concentrations of alcohol licenses with collaborative input from residents and business owners. So when they've done this before, it's one by one, and there's no discussion with residents and business owners about what they want and don't want. And so a question is, how would they do that? Number two is, we might want to regulate what's already there. We might want to prevent certain areas, especially neighborhoods, might not want concentration of alcohol around. This is not looking at individually. But some areas might want it, and so then we would want to create concentrations. And all this would potentially tie into the process that the Planning Commission is going through, and also what the consultant's doing on the code. So anyway, the idea is to put this on the workshop for August 29th, and we'll have the experts from the city working with us.
We have a second from Councilman Vieira, Councilman Clendenin.
Yeah, I just in order to keep it real, reference South Howard. I don't necessarily disagree with what you've just described, but I want to make sure we keep what really is happening here in line with reality. One, I think it's been over 20 years since a liquor license has been issued in that area. And it may have seen that because some of these places that had previously been issued liquor licenses have just experienced economic success. So their business has grown. So there hasn't been any liquor license issued in that area in recent history, is what I've been told. Clearly, I've only been here for a year, but that's what I've been told. The other thing is that the shooting that happened, it happened outside of a pizza place. It wasn't at a bar or anything. So I think that gets convoluted too. We talk about like what's actually happening. Are there problems? Possibly. I think maybe in that workshop we could talk about the sink or swim type of all you can drink within a given amount of time, which contributes. Because trust me, I mean this is kind of my neighborhood. I drive through it, and it's challenging to drive through at certain hours of the night because people stumbling across the road. It's definitely interesting, but there's not, when you look at there's a lot of restaurants that have alcohol consumption on, but they are restaurants. I mean, I don't think any of us want to close down Burns. There's a lot of great restaurants in that street. Japanese steakhouses and some a lot of gourmet things that have opened up there, and some casual places to eat. And I'm a frequent user of those establishments, not so much the bars, but the restaurants in that area. I just want to make sure that again because as we discussed with the police today, the issues, some of the violence that we've experienced in the city, it's not. You can't just say it's related to one, other than the fact the proliferation of guns. I mean, because we had downtown. There's no bar at Marion and Tyler. It was a restaurant in Tampa Heights. It was people that were not participating in the bars in Ybor City. This is a pizza place in South Howard. I mean, it's all over the city. It's all over the country.
Over the world.
It's all over the way. It's just so it's a pandemic of gun violence. So I think it's worthy of discussion. I just think we need to frame it that of how we create zoning and stuff.
This is a planning discussion. Right. I used a couple examples, right. But this is a planning discussion. If instead of looking at it one alcohol license application at a time, we'll look at it as regions or areas and decide whether we want stricter guidelines or less strict guidelines. But we'll have the discussion then. The Howard thing we could talk a lot about. Right. That's a separate issue. Right. It is somewhat connected because the neighborhoods never said we want this. But that's the point, is that if there's a neighborhood, how do we decide whether we want more concentration or less?
Councilmember Miranda.
I think you got to go back and look at the history of the makeup, how it happened. It happened during 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, I guess, straight. But when you start saying that, well, I'm going to rent that lot across the street so I can get my liquor license, and that's what's going to be my parking or whatever the entity was, that's fine and dandy. But what happens when they sell it the next day, the parking lot? You don't have nothing to hang your feet on. Hat, whatever you want to call it, but it's not only there, it's everywhere. You cannot, today, gunfight and killings with guns, it's unpredictable. It can happen. It happens inside of a worship place. It's happening everywhere. It's happening at a bank. It's happening in a Little League field. You look at America, it's happening everywhere. It's COVID with a gun.
Parades.
And until they change hope and desire and all that you need to have when you're growing up, this is something that doesn't happen today because you did it today. It happened because 10, 20 years ago, you kept getting worse and worse and worse. And all of a sudden you're in a gang, all of a sudden you're going to fight with somebody else. It's a difficult epidemic that there's no cure for until we find the real reason. And the real reason, and some of it, how can you give anyone a gun without having a gun permit? No matter who you are, what rate you are, what age you are, nothing. Here, take your gun.
Concealed, walking around, people walk into this chamber with a gun.
So, I mean, that's going to come to be political sooner or later. And these are the things that I'm troubled with as just a resident of the city of Tampa. And it's just an epidemic throughout the United States that should never happen. However, you either on the left or on the right. You're either a D or an R. And the people in the center are forgotten. Yep. And those are just a realist. And I think it goes back when the legislature stopped coming home and living in Washington. They lived there. Both parties lived there. They went to church together. They went to functions together. They went to the theater together without even knowing they were there. and they made friends, and they had feelings for each other. There are no feelings for each other now. And that's the problem we have in this country. There's no one to the left and no one to the right wants to be in the middle. And I admire some legislatures that are no longer there that speak out, and some that have left because they say, we don't want this anymore. And this is what's happening now in Congress. So that's just my opinion. I may be 100% wrong, or I might be 100% right. But I don't see, until you understand what life is, that used to be, that would come home 4 or 5 times a year, and that was it. They lived there, and they don't happen anymore. That's what I think is happening. That's the start of something in politics. The other part is the youth. They've seen violence all their lives. They go home, they watch TV on violence, they go to movies about violence. The Terminator never dies, this guy never dies, the other lady never dies. And they say, well, nobody's going to die, just going to shoot somebody. I don't think they're just going to shoot somebody. They're having a conflict among themselves and some other individual that they don't like, and that's a result of it. It's not that simple. And not only when you shoot somebody, you're actually shooting yourself, because you're going to spend a long time in jail. And that's the problem we have.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Carlson, you have a motion?
Yeah, so the motion is just to have a workshop item to talk about concentrations of alcohol licenses and whether we should regulate them, prevent them, or create them.
And if I may,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I seconded this, and again, I don't necessarily see this as related as to what happened a few days ago. That is a problem. It's a problem that folks come and talk to us about. I think it's fine.
I don't know. I really do want to support you, but I just can't on this one. I kind of feel that zoning, I mean, there's so many big different, I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it's right because of zoning and there's other issues that are involved and specific and is what's legal, what's not. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like we're there yet.
But Susan Johns-Velez and Abby will be here. The issue is if you go, take Florida Avenue, for example, if we go one by one, and we waive the setback criteria or the distance requirement, one by one, it might look fine, but then suddenly 20 bars are right next to each other and right next to a neighborhood. And so the idea is, should we do something larger to either strengthen that or to allow it?
Well, I see the same frustration. You know, when we had that issue come up in Ybor City where we expanded that liquor license to outdoor patio to a block that doesn't have bars, and I'm thinking, because I had the same kind of concern, but this council didn't. But I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying. I don't know. I just don't know if it's right for discussion.
Councilmember Miranda.
Thank you. Let me just say this. When you come to alcohol, it's not the building you're zoning, it's the land. They got that passed through the legislature many years ago. That land is forever zoned in that division.
Well, I think we need to take that into account when we're
So that's got to be,
decisions.
if you want to do something, you have to start with changing the legislative law that mandate us that when you zone something, it's forever.
Yeah.
That land is zoned for that, and you can't take it away. That's the problem we have.
Mr. Shelby.
Yeah, if I could follow up on what Councilmember Miranda said, that's very true. Because first of all, you have no ability to address alcohol licenses. The term is not even applicable to what you do. The state controls alcohol licenses. You control zoning. That's what power and authority the state gives you. And if you recall the red-blue map that's been prepared, that wasn't always that way. That was to give you the big picture in a way to be able to judge whether something is compatible or not. And I guess if I understand what your motion is, that's something similar to look at a greater picture where the other alcoholic beverage sales, special use permits, which are the proper term, you grant a special use permit to grant the property the right to serve alcohol there, subject to state licensure. So if I understand and I don't want to misconstrue what you're saying, but what you're saying is rather than what might be referred to as incremental decision-making, you want to see over the course of time what becomes the big picture.
Yeah, like in zoning, when they would go through the planning process, they may go through and change big areas from industrial to residential or something like that. So area-wide rezonings, and this is a similar thing, so that we can decide so we can plan. Nobody's doing any planning for alcohol licenses, all haphazard, all by application, and instead we can look at it and try to figure out if there are any. The discussion could be short where we decide there are no tools that we can use, but if there are some tools, the only thing is to have the discussion and look at it.
Well,
question.
What I'm hearing though is that we can't be trusted with that decision, because we're supposed to be, that's what we should be doing with every one of these applications, is we should be taking that into account. So that, I mean, I don't know, I'm just not there yet, but yeah.
Okay.
Call
We have a
question.
motion. There was a second from Councilman Beer. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
I don't mind having a hearing on it or discussion on it, but I mean, the land is zoned forever. Even if the building burned, the land is still zoned for alcohol beverage.
And I'm not talking about taking it away. The idea
I'm
is.
just saying.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Nay. Ma'am? Aye. You were in favor? Yes. Okay. It was a four.
I'll tell you guys.
Motion carried with Maniscalco and Clendenin voting no and Hurtek absent.
Yes? Yes?
What was the vote again? It failed. Yeah.
If I may, counsel, I apologize, I have to go to my nephew's graduation.
That's it. Thank you.
Have fun.
Happy graduation. Anything else?
I have one very last thing. I don't know whether the council member wants to vote. I don't think it's necessary. I'm making a request, I'm asking council for someone to make a motion setting a 10-minute presentation at the request by motion and vote of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee for a presentation to City Council for June 20th, a 10-minute presentation.
I'll make that motion.
We have a
Thank
motion from Councilmember Miranda. This is June 20th for the Citizens Budget Advisory Group to do a 10-minute presentation. We do have a second? Second from Councilmember Carlson.
What's the subject?
The subject is recommendations for the FY25 budget.
Are they meeting with our budget analysts before they meet with us?
Yes, they will be. The next meeting is the second Friday in June.
Yeah, so ahead of our 20th meeting. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Can I get a motion to receive and file? Yes.
We had a lot of really long presentations today, and please, it's something we need to hear. But I think the guts of it could be in 10 minutes, and so we've said previously. I think maybe we voted today. Some will be 5 and some will be 10, but we really should limit anything that's beyond 10 minutes.
And that, honestly, that's part of my concern about what you just brought up.
Sir, I can't hear you.
Sorry.
I can't hear you.
Point taken. Our agendas are so packed and these things are so long, and that's part of what my fear was with reference to what I just voted against, because it's just like now we're just talking about something that doesn't have a resolution, trying to clean these things up. But I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think part of that, Marty and I had a sidebar about this, is that when we invite folks, we need to make sure that every one of them is told in advance what their time limits are.
Yes, as a courtesy to them and to us and to the public, so. Yes, sir.
Thank you for recognizing me again, but 30 years, I got an award today for 30 years in the public. They gave me the opportunity to serve, and what you're talking about is correct, but cannot be applicable to today's society. When I started in 1974 through 79, we never left here after noon. We never had an afternoon meeting. You know why? There was nothing going on in the city of Tampa. Ybor City was dead. Downtown was dead. There was nothing there where we are talking about now, nothing. There was nothing to do other than count how many people were living downtown. There was about 600. They were in jail. And that's the problem we have. We have become something else, and so now our agendas are different, very different. But that's all. Thank you very much.
But you had Moss Brothers, you had Woolworth.
And they're gone. They were gone.
All we have now is CVS.
But I don't want to get what he just said lost in this discussion.
No, he's right.
100%. I think the expectation has to be that people stick. But they have to be told in advance of what that time limit is, so they can craft their message for that time limit. And I think it's the fair thing to do. I think that it really it's fair to us too, because I'm telling you, the way we're going right now, we're going for a second meeting every once. We're going to have to start adding meetings if these meetings keep going, the way they're going.
I'll give you an example, and this is my fault because it was my item. But last week at the CRA meeting, the Tampa Theater got up and presented, and then there was a second item, and they presented for like 20 minutes, and it was great information.
Right.
But but I should have told them in advance, you have to, I know to do this, I just didn't do it. You have to focus on the topic and you have 5 minutes. That's it.
Plus, everybody sends us these presentations in advance.
Yeah.
I mean, I read them all.
Yeah.
You know, at the end, I think that's important.
But you know,
that we do that.
I've been part of these presentations before I got on council, and you all probably have too, where people practice for hours and days
Right.
getting ready, because to them it's really important.
Yeah, exactly.
But for us, we got, and so we just give them a 5-minute limit, 10-minute limit.
Our agendas are just getting so packed, and again, I mean, if we can't call this, I'm telling you, we're gonna have to add a second meeting. It's just.
Motion, yeah?
Just a reminder that per your new rules that'll take effect next month, you are limited to 7 items. But mind you, 7 items at an hour each is 7 hours.
7 hours,
So you do raise a point, but the other thing is, if it's something that you could tell them how much time, but if it's the staff that wants to make the presentation, they can also inform you how much time they need or they think they need, and then you can adjust your agenda accordingly.
Or tell them no.
Or tell them.
Motion to receive and file, yes?
Just a quick point on that. It is at the discretion of the chair, so remember when the zoo presented, and it was just supposed to be about one little item about the zoo, but yet she had a whole big presentation, and I was like, okay, you have 2 more minutes. No, it was the zoo, it was zoo.
No. I know the Tampa Theater did do that.
It was, but there, that's right, thank you.
That was my fault, so I'll follow.
Yeah, but they did add another little piece to their presentation,
Yeah.
and the chair, we can just.
It was my item, I should have been on top of it, but we need to do that for all items.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
good to bring it
and
up.
the
It's
chair
good to
can
remind
control
us.
it.
And you know what, you're gonna have to
Based
remind
on
us
the
again
meeting,
too.
the
Marty's
length
gonna
of
have to remind us again. Guido's gonna have to remind us again. Chairwoman Henderson's gonna have to remind us again.
We can just, even in the moment, sometimes things get lengthy, and he can just say, hey, you only have, let's go.
We gotta eat.
That's right.
Board receive and file.
Second.
Motion from Councilmember Miranda to receive and
Have a
file.
wonderful
Councilmember
weekend,
Miranda.
I'm gonna sit here and
y'all.
talk
All in
about this
favor?
more.
Come back
Aye.
next week.
We are adjourned.
That guy that made the motion.
I know. Thank goodness.